hear that? How about now? Those are sea lions. They're the loudmouth conquerors of the Pacific Ocean. These chunky sirens are expert divers and fishers. Hold your breath and get ready to meet the king of the beach. Today, we're hanging out with the sea lion colony. Earlier this year, we talked about the adorable and stinky fur seals. And we mentioned that they're actually more closely related to sea lions than to true seals. I loved the stinky little Aussies so much that I couldn't pass the opportunity to meet their Canadian family in the North Pacific. 2 of the 6 species of sea lion can be found here in Canada, the humongous Steller sea lion and the adorable California sea lion. The other 4 species live in the southern hemisphere. Oh my god. These are Steller sea lions. Our first stop is the local Steller sea lion colonies. They are the largest of all sea lions. They're also the only species that breeds here off the coast of British Columbia. They're pretty hard to miss. These Steller sea lions are taking turns resting up on the rocks and then diving down into the kelp forests to look for some fish to eat. When one gets tired and gets its fill, it'll go and take up some space up on the rocks. I don't know how they can swim in that crazy swell. They're absolutely massive and get to that size mostly by eating fatty fish such as herring and sand lance. Pollock is also consumed, but it's not as nutritious as it only contains 1/10 of the fat herrings have. In areas where herring stocks are declining, Steller sea lion populations are decreasing. Young sea lions don't grow quickly enough if they and their moms don't eat enough herring, which leads to high mortality rates. This is a problem because they're often surrounded by the most notorious fish thieves in the world, bald eagles. Not a good look, Freedom Bird. We just saw a sea lion punch a gull in the face, and then a bald eagle showed up and stole the sea lion's fish and flew off with it. Gulls in hot pursuit. I think he got away. Good job, I guess. A diet of fatty fish doesn't make these guys weak. They can be ferocious. Their skulls are surprisingly similar to a brown bear's skull. Sea grizzlies would have been a more appropriate name. The Steller sea lions are extremely sexually dimorphic. The females grow to only 400 to 500 kilos, but the males can grow all the way to 1,200 kilos. Just massive. Males also don a mane once they reach sexual maturity. This is where their name comes from. Catching fish in the ocean is no easy task, but sea lions have a number of adaptations that make it a little bit easier. The main one is their breathing. When people dive, water pressure forces gases in our lungs, such as nitrogen, into our blood. When we surface and decompress, they expand and can cause tissue damage. Sea lions prevent decompression sickness by exhaling before they dive and reducing the amount of gases that can go into their blood through their lungs. They can also slow down their metabolism to reduce oxygen requirements. After fattening up in the winter, sea lions meet in rookeries. The males fight for prime real estate, which attracts females. For sea lions, it's all about 3 things: location, location, location. Females show up pregnant and give birth soon after arriving. Now these noisy lads behind me are the Steller sea lions. There's 2 species of sea lions that live around here. But one way that you can distinguish them is that these ones are a little bit bigger, a little bit lighter, and these guys roar and grunt, just like you can hear right now. The other species is the California sea lion, and those ones you're more likely to hear barking. Absolutely massive lads. reason males make these nursing areas for females is because they can mate soon after giving birth. They're also able to delay implantation so that they can time their next birth to the following spring. Sometimes the pups will nurse for over a year, and in some rare cases, a 2-year-old female pup will give birth while still being nursed by her mother. This is extremely rare among mammals. These sea lions are putting on such a show. And the ones in the water are much smaller, telling me that those are all the females. Now the females are doing flips in the water. As you can imagine, a rock that's home to dozens of sea lions is not necessarily the best place to have a picnic. Gotta admit, they kind of smell like they sound. Yeah. Oh, some of them are kind of whistling. That's kind of cool. In some cases, they might even share their rocks with harbor seals. But you can easily tell them apart because seals don't have the sea lion's Shrek-like ears. Also, the seal's hind legs point backwards, so when they're on land, they have to drag themselves to move. Sea lions' legs point to the sides, so they're able to walk a little better. This is especially helpful when comparing them with the smaller California sea lion. Behind me, we've got some California sea lions. They can be as long as a Steller sea lion, but are much leaner, with males weighing only about 300 kilograms. Like their bigger cousins, females are a third of the male's size. I love the way that these sea lions are so casually lounging. Paint me like one of your sea lions. These sea good boys don't breed in British Columbia, but males come up here after the breeding season to spend the winter. The world's population of California sea lions is about 300,000, but only about 3,000 make it up here to Vancouver and stick around. Females tend to stay in warmer Californian waters with their pups. Males can get used to the colder water, but have to find ways to keep themselves warm. Got some California sea lions just out front here. They're just swimming along, taking some dives. Out in the distance, sometimes you can see them lift a flipper while staying underwater. It's called finning, and it's usually for regulating their body temperature a little bit. You can usually hear them and smell them before you can see them. California sea lions are loud. You know that stereotypical seal noise? It's actually a sea lion bark. And given that they're always hanging out with their squad, their cacophony can be heard from far, far away. Sea lions are social leaders and often play with their favorite dinner guests, whales. This humpback has been fluking and finning alongside these sea lions for about half an hour. We're not sure why they do it, but it sure looks like they're having fun. The Tasmanian coast, a habitat dominated by violence, crushing waves, deadly predators, and an unforgiving rocky shoreline. But one species thrives in this craggy chaos: the fur seal. I'm heading out to the pier now on Phillip Island to join a boat on a little tour out to Seal Rock. Seal Rock has a resident population of Australian fur seals. This colony in particular is pretty gigantic. They're estimating the numbers at around 30,000. There are 9 species of fur seals within the Arctocephalinae subfamily, and they're actually more closely related to sea lions than true seals. Unlike true seals, fur seals have ears, and with 4 limbs are quite agile on land. They're found around the world, and a few of those species call the shores of Australia home, including the Australian fur seal and the long-nosed or New Zealand fur seal. usually located on rocky islands and outcroppings. These colonies may not look appealing, but to fur seals, it's their temptation island. Welcome to Seal Rock. You hear it and you smell it before you see it. It's hard to describe the smell of a fur seal colony, though I guess it smells like what it is: rotting fish and seal poo. For something that looks like a cute sea doggo, they have one hell of an unappealing smell. Spending much of their lives at sea, males come to shore to establish these massive colonies, and they fight each other for the best mating spots. Females will also fight other females once they've mated for access to the best areas to give birth. Female fur seals will give birth to a single pup in the summer. One incredibly cool thing that fur seals can do is that they can control when their embryo starts to develop through a process called delayed implantation, which means that they can delay embryo development. They do this to ensure their pups are born in the summer, when temperatures are warm and food is plentiful. The mothers do all the parenting and spend their days hunting for food. The pups stay behind and play with the other pups in the neighborhood. There's some babies playing out over there. Little fur seal pups. The pups are actually born black, and in the late spring, they molt and turn a lighter brownish gray. So cute. It's going like this. I do that too. Pups plunge into the water for the first time at 6 months of age. And by 11 months, they're independent, though they'll still stick close to mom for moral support. So fur seals really do live up to their name because they're intensely furry. Fur seals have 2 thick layers of fur to keep them warm in cold waters, unlike many other species which only have 1. The top layer repels water, and the underfur keeps their bodies toasty in the cold waters they call home. It also makes them much better swimmers because they become more hydrodynamic. Not only do these colonies smell horrible, but they're also incredibly loud. The whole island is a cacophony of females yelling at their kids and males yelling at each other. Each voice is unique to the seal and identifiable by other seals. A useful skill in what can only be described as a big ol' pile of seals. Unlike true seals, which look like pigs in a blanket on land, fur seals have strong limbs and can top around 15 kilometers an hour running. While they are fairly adept on land, underwater is where they thrive. Fur seals are purpose-built swimmers. They look fluid and can turn on a dime to evade a predator or pursue prey. They can hold their breath for up to 15 minutes, diving up to 380 meters on a single breath, all while hunting and eating. They are one with the ocean. While they do eat squid and octopus, the vast majority of their diet is made up of fish. These fish, sensing predators in the area, have formed what's called a bait ball. The fish swim together in a large ball, and since there's so many fish, each fish is banking on the predator getting full before catching them. A survival strategy for the fish is a buffet for the fur seals. The seals dive through the bait ball, mouth wide open, scooping up as much as possible. But the fur seals aren't the only ones that have shown up to the party. We've got a bait ball that we're chasing, and we're not the only ones here. The bait ball has drawn all kinds of predators. Terns, gannets, and an albatross attack it from above. While below the surface, a school of dolphins is converging on the bait ball. It's a sight to behold. It's crazy. But the fur seals have to be quick. They aren't the biggest predators on the scene anymore. Sharks are the fur seal's biggest predators, and a great white shark is a particularly adept foe. Fur seals are much more agile than great whites, and they can outmaneuver the sharks with ease. If need be, they'll jump out of the water to avoid a bite and confuse their pursuers. They also use their numbers to their advantage, as the predators are less likely to target a group. But this seal has gotten separated from its friends. Disoriented by the commotion, he makes an easy target for the great white. But fur seals aren't usually such easy meals. Male Australian fur seals can measure over 2 meters in length and weigh up to 280 kilograms. They have large canines that they use to rip and tear into their prey. They also have the cutest little ears, just little fleshy tubes with fur. True seals don't have that either. While charging through bait balls is an easy way for them to fish, they spend a lot of their time hunting in kelp forests. And they have a familiar adaptation that helps them thrive in these underwater mazes. Their whiskers. Fur seals have incredibly sensitive whiskers. They're up to 14 times more sensitive than a cat's whiskers. They use their whiskers for following the vibrations and currents created by fish, noting all the subtle little changes in the water, allowing them to pinpoint the fish's location with ease. Kelp forests are prime fishing territory. These giant underwater forests can grow upwards of 40 meters from the seafloor and are home to a diverse ecosystem filled with a vast array of fish and crustaceans. They offer refuge from the crushing currents of the ocean, providing many species with fertile breeding grounds. Unfortunately, this important ecosystem is disappearing around the world. Well, I don't enjoy being the bearer of bad news, but it's worth mentioning how climate change is affecting these fur seals. It's actually a very observable thing. As sea temperatures continue to rise, kelp forests across the globe are vanishing. During recent marine heat waves, the waters in the Tasman Sea have been 3 degrees Celsius hotter than they were just 25 years ago. Kelp don't have root systems, and they rely on the nutrients in the water to survive. And warm water carries less nutrients than colder water. And so, during these heat waves, the kelp don't absorb enough nutrients to survive. The problem is exacerbated by warm waters bringing invasive species with them that quickly take over these habitats. Within the last 20 years, the footprint of the kelp forests in Tasmania have decreased by 95%. Just imagine if 95% of the forests in your hometown had been cut down in the last 20 years. In the absence of the kelp forests, the ocean floor, once rich with biodiversity in these areas, now resembles a wasteland, devoid of life. For the fur seal, it means going out farther to find food, or not returning with enough to feed their pups. And for us, it's a sign of things to come. The world of marine mammals is full of charismatic creatures. Gentle giants,
Jesus Christ,
floaty teddy bears, playful sea doggos. But one particular species has gone its own way and turned itself into a wonderful weirdo that wouldn't be out of place in a Star Wars movie. Their appearance is even more striking when contrasted with their closest relatives, which are basically a Disney character come to life. These are the hosts of the most awkward family reunions, the seals. Today, we're continuing on our short run of episodes of marvelous massive mammals of the North American Pacific. This area off the coast of Vancouver Island is home to an oddball couple of seals. One is as cute as a button, and the other, well, I'm sure it has a very nice personality.
They could hardly look any more different, so let's start with what they have in common. They're both members of the Vaquitas family, also known as the true seals.
These chunky boys' biology is geared for life in the water. In order to reduce drag when diving, they lack external ears and have backwards-facing hind flippers. The drawback is that it also makes it harder for them to walk on land. They have to drag themselves across the rocks to move around. Their distant cousins, the sea lions, have similar lifestyles, but their sideways pointing legs help them walk on land a little more gracefully.
Now let's take a look at their many differences. First of all, their size disparity.
Elephant seals are one of the largest seals in the world, while harbor seals are one of the smallest. The local northern elephant seal bulls can weigh up to 3 tons and measure 5 meters in length. That's pretty much the same dimensions as an SUV. Females are much smaller at 3 meters in length and a maximum weight of 1 ton. Harbor seals are minuscule in comparison. At about 150 kilograms for the largest males, they're a 20th of the size of an elephant seal. Females are a little smaller than the males, but they're not quite as sexually dimorphic as their gigantic cousins.
Despite looking like cute water puppies, harbor seals can't claim the title of smallest seal in the world.
That distinction goes to the adorable Baikal seals, which are half as big as harbor seals. These Siberian cuties are also the only seals to live exclusively in fresh water.
These little seals are so cute, I can't even stand it. They camouflage really well with the rocks that they stay on, which is kind of a gross fact because what they're camouflaging with is poop-covered rocks. So that's black with white splashes all over it. So they kind of end up resembling that. But still, very cute. Now it's time to address the elephant in the room. What did the harbor seal say to the elephant seal? Why the long face? Ba-dum.
The male elephant seal's proboscis is the Swiss knife of animal appendages. They make them look like overweight water saigas, but they're incredibly useful. Their secondary sexual characteristics, with the largest, strongest males usually having the larger trunks. So, if you're a male, you don't want to challenge another male that has a much bigger schnoz. Sometimes in nature, size does matter. They have cavities inside it that act as resonators when they roar, making elephant seals some of the loudest mammals on Earth.
The least obvious, but perhaps the most important feature of the proboscis is its ability to catch moisture from the air.
During the breeding season, males can go up to 3 months without food. Since they get most of their water from their food, it also means they can get dehydrated over time. So, being able to trap moisture in their proboscis is potentially life-saving. Their breeding period is already dangerous enough. In January, they start looking for ideal breeding spots and fight each other for the best real estate. The fights are pretty ridiculous. A few weeks later, the females show up and choose the male with their favorite breeding grounds.
A big, successful male with a nice, comfortable property can have a harem of over 50 females, in some extreme cases reaching the triple digits. That means that in a lifetime, a big male can sire 500 pups.
Females are much smaller, sometimes just 1/10 of the male's size, making elephant seals the most sexually dimorphic mammals on Earth. They don't have a proboscis, as they don't fast nearly as long as the males and can go back to water soon after giving birth, leaving the pups to fend for themselves.
Luckily for the seal pups, elephant seal milk is about 50% fat, so they get lots of calories and grow quickly. For context, deliciously thick cow milk is only about 3.5% fat.
Despite the whole harem thing, female elephant seals are actually fairly independent ladies. They're loyal to the land, not to the man. Males who don't have territories will try to sneak onto other males' land and mate with the females. So the big male spends most of his time chasing away younger, opportunistic males, and little time actually copulating.
That's what they don't tell you about harem ownership. The upkeep is a full-time job.
Harbor seals are a little more private about their breeding. Courting and copulation takes place underwater, so nobody knows exactly how it happens. All we know is that in early summer, females come out and give birth to well-developed pups. They nurse for 3 to 4 weeks and then are ready to go out into the water. Zero drama. Feeding strategies are also affected by size. Tiny harbor seals like relatively shallow waters, like estuaries and even rivers, where they can catch fish like salmon and shad. Female elephant seals go to more pelagic hunting grounds, while males can catch their prey at the bottom of the ocean at depths of over 1,500 meters. Lanternfish and squid are their most common deep-water prey.
Mammals are not really meant to go so deep, and so the northern elephant seal has a few adaptations to help with deep water.
The main one is the ability to store huge amounts of oxygen in their body. They're the only animal known to store oxygenated red blood cells in their spleen, which then get gradually released into their bloodstream. Extra oxygen is stored in their muscles and their blood, as they have high concentrations of oxygen-binding proteins. On top of that, they can slow down their heartbeat and their metabolism. All of this helps them hold their breath for up to 100 minutes, the longest of any mammals outside cetaceans. Harbor seals can hold their breath for a more modest, but still amazing, 30 minutes. When they're hunting, they have to be careful not to become prey themselves. Despite their size difference, elephant seals and harbor seals have the same main predators: great white sharks and killer whales.
Crazy.
And yet, despite their formidable predators, they're thriving. Both species are protected, and their numbers have been growing steadily over the past few decades.
If you want to meet that giant that Luke Skywalker milked in that movie, these are probably the closest you'll find on Earth. Come visit when it's safe.
There it is!
Oh, looks like a big one. Can you see it? Oh, we're so lucky. We've actually spotted a mother and her cub. They're just hanging on to each other right at the surface. It's incredible. It's already a good morning. Oh my god, it's got a clam and a rock. Oh, this is amazing. Wait, is that an octopus?
What do you get when you combine the brains to make tools, the best cold water gear in the world, and sharp teeth capable of breaking crab shells? It's not a Navy SEAL, or even a regular seal. It's the deadly, ferocious, vicious, back from the brink, sea otter.
And who am I kidding? These guys are adorable.
Before I tell you how we brought sea otters back from the brink of extinction, let me tell you some breaking scoop, courtesy of today's sponsor, Scoop Free. Having Nebula is one of my favorite things in the world, but there's one thing about pet ownership that is, honestly, Not great. Luckily, PetSafe's scoop-free, self-cleaning litter box gets rid of that issue. With scoop-free, you'll never have to touch, smell, or even see your cat's waste again. It rakes it away automatically. Scoop-free reduces odors better than clay litter boxes, and the replaceable litter trays make changing the litter easy and painless. And if you've ever had cats, you know they love the clean litter too. So stop procrastinating and check out the Scoop-free. Click on the link in the description to get yourself an automatic litter box today. Tofino. One of North America's most biodiverse ecosystems. Here, you'll find everything from jellyfish,
Ooh, look at that jelly!
to massive slugs, to coastal black bears, to seal-eating coastal wolves, to the fastest porpoises in the world.
There's a Dall's porpoise following right along on a boat. It's right beside me, right below me.
But we're here to see something pretty special. These coasts are home to one of the cutest mammals on the face of the earth.
It's an absolutely beautiful morning out here on the ocean just off the coast of Vancouver Island, and we're out looking for some marine otters. Right now, I'm at the top of a double-decker boat operated by our friends at Aquatic Safaris in Tofino. They're experts at finding local wildlife, and having tall boats makes it easier to spot sea otters. Let's go see some otters. Oh, there's one right there. That way, right behind us.
Sea otters live exclusively in the North Pacific. From northern Japan, across the Bering Strait, all the way down to Baja. This area of British Columbia is more temperate than most of their range and is known to be home to a small colony of otters.
We're scanning the surface of this kelp forest here, hoping to find some sea otters.
Though it's getting pretty cold for us, otters don't mind the weather at all. They even thrive in colder regions.
I feel like anywhere that you see a mat of kelp at the surface, your chances are pretty good at seeing a marine otter.
Most marine mammals battle freezing temperatures by growing thick layers of blubber and becoming chonky boys. Sea otters have evolved to keep trim at a lean 40 kilograms, and instead of getting fat, they just wear the best coat on the planet.
Oh, I found some more. There's some more over there. Or there's at least 1, 2, 3. Oh my god, there's 3 right there. Holy. They have the densest fur in the world to keep themselves warm. Older otters can have 1,000,000 hairs per square inch. That's 1,000 times denser than a human scalp. Bonkers. They can grow 400,000 hairs on an area the size of a penny. Alright, we are super lucky because we just spotted a sea otter down in this kelp forest over here.
But the fur itself doesn't keep otters warm. Rather, it creates a layer of air that insulates them. Their hair is also barbed, which makes it more likely to get matted and better at holding in bubbles. Researchers have recently discovered that those bubbles provide better insulation than blubber. Their buoyancy is a feature that's especially useful when they're pups. Otters are year-round moms. Half the year they're pregnant, and the other half they're taking care of their baby. Luckily, our friends at Elkhorn Slough in California have been keeping track of their population using otter cams. And they got to witness this amazing birth live. The first thing the mom does is lick the baby until it's dry. All the licking makes the hair so fluffy that they're physically unable to sink. They're like a furry beach ball on the water.
They almost look like they have a permanent flotation device or something, because they're always just so comfortably laying in the water, floating at the surface. Unfortunately, their amazing fur has caused them a lot of trouble, since humans caught wind that they could make a lot of money off them.
The Great Hunt started in the mid-1700s, when Russian fur traders realized they could sell otter pelts for 20 times more than sable pelts. This led them to expand their area of operation to North America, and soon after, other nations entered the otter fur trade. In the following 200 years, the worldwide otter population declined from hundreds of thousands across the North Pacific to just over 1,000 in a few isolated pockets. The local population here on Vancouver Island was totally extirpated. This caused significant ecological damage. So, starting in the 1960s, a reintroduction program started to bring Alaskan otters to repopulate the island. Sea otters are a keystone species and control sea urchin populations, which are voracious kelp eaters.
These sea otters live, eat, and breed in these kelp forests that they call home.
Dozens of invertebrate species and several fish species require kelp forests to survive. Without otters, they disappear too. Thankfully, sea otter populations have recovered from the brink of extinction, but they are still endangered. Despite all of their challenges, they're slowly but surely recovering. Their worldwide population is over 1,000 times larger than it was 100 years ago, and about 2/3 of the pre-Great Hunt numbers. This otter we're seeing here is a descendant of those Alaskan otters. And the kelp is part of the forest that they helped bring back. And the boom in biodiversity has been a boon to other mammals, such as these sea doggos. Sea otters eat a lot. They eat about 20% of their body weight in food every day. Luckily, they're able to eat a huge amount of prey species. But slow-moving animals from the sea bottom, such as large bivalves, are their favorite snacks. They have very strong jaws and sharp teeth, which allow them to crack open crabs. A perfect treat for a lazy day in the sun. In most of their range, clams and mussels are the staples of their diet. But clamshells are too tough to break open by bite alone. And so, sea otters have taken the same jump humanity did, and they've started to use tools.
I never thought I'd see this. This is amazing.
To open up a clam, sea otters use sharp rocks. Under each of their arms, they have flaps of loose skin, which they use to store food and also to hang on to their favorite rocks. They then return to the surface with a tasty clam. They roll onto their backs and smack the living daylights out of the clam until it breaks. Then, it's lunchtime!
They're not picky though. They'll eat whatever they can catch. Their only limitation is depth.
Despite being able to hold their breath for 8 minutes, they can only dive to about 40 meters. Their bubbles trapped in their fur make them too buoyant to go any deeper. Aww.
But that's all right. Digging through the floor of shallow waters makes them as happy as a clam. Well, maybe not these particular clams.
But just when we thought we couldn't see anything cooler than an otter opening up a clam...
Wait, is that an octopus?
That's right! This industrious sea otter was able to capture one of the world's greatest escape artists, an octopus. When in Rome. An amazing swimmer, singer, and binge eater who can steal your girlfriend any day. The real hunchback of Notre Dame! No, we're not talking about our hunky producer Dylan. We're talking about the humongous humpback whale.
Today we're just off the coast of Victoria, BC, and we're gonna go and look for some humpback whales. Oh, show us that tail! Oh!
Wow. The humpback whale gets its name from its most emblematic feature, its hump. The hump is located around its dorsal fin, which can be seen when it dives. In addition to a large hump, it also has unusually long pectoral fins, which can be a third of its total body length, or 5 meters in the largest individuals. In fact, its scientific name, Megaptera novae angliae, means the giant wings of New England, after its fins and the area where it used to be most common. This coastline is still famous for being home to several whales. It didn't take long to see one.
Oh, that's a humpback whale! It's so close! Look at that tail!
Humpback whales are members of the rorqual family, the largest mammals to ever live. Their cousins include the gigantic fin whales, which can be 25 meters long and weigh 75 tons, and the blue whale, which can reach 30 meters in length and weigh over 150 tons, 30 times heavier than an African elephant. Compared to these leviathans, humpback whales look like pocket whales, but they're still massive, at 15 meters long and 30 tons in weight. That means they don't have to worry about us puny little humans.
I'm told that they're really not intimidated by passing boats because they're whales and are much larger than our little boat. I can imagine it would take a lot to intimidate a whale.
Though they should care a little, because collisions with boats is one of the main causes of mortality. Some of the survivors carry gnarly scars for the rest of their lives. To get to this size, they need to eat a lot. A single humpback whale can eat over a ton of food a day. Most of their prey weighs just a few grams, which means humpies can catch over 1 million animals a day. Their favorite prey are krill, tiny crustaceans which are some of the most abundant animals on Earth, and schools of small fish like baby salmon and herring. Sometimes, when eating, they'll do the coolest thing you'll ever see. A breach.
Just witnessed my first whale breach and here it goes again! Oh, insane! This behemoth just launched itself out of the ocean. Unbelievable. They make it look so easy, right?
We're still not sure why humpbacks breach. The main theories are that they do it as a form of communication, as a way of getting rid of parasites, or as a consequence of feeding close to the surface.
Hello? The whale watchers and the whale guides around here know the individuals that live in the area, or at least frequent the area. They keep these photo guides of the bottom of the tails. Every single whale has its own pattern, just as well as we have our own fingerprints.
Obviously, there isn't enough time in a day to fish 1 million krill. Humpback whales and their rorqual brethren have adapted to turn their mouths into giant nets. The process is called lunge feeding. The whale swims towards a school of fish or a swarm of krill and opens its giant mouth, swallowing the whole gang. Of course, good food attracts more diners than just whales. Sea lions and seagulls are quick to join the party.
We've got a whole assortment of flippers sticking up right now. We've got tail flukes and flippers and dorsal fins from this humpback whale, but we've also got the flippers from all these stellar sea lions.
When the mouth opens, it can take in more water weight than its own body weight. The lower jaw can expand sideways because the left and right side are not fused like our jaws, but rather separate like our ribs. The nerves and the arteries are stretchy, and they can quickly snap back once the water is pushed out. This is the largest biomechanical event on Earth. Their feeding tactic, combined with elite diving ability, makes them the bane of the krill's existence.
These humpback whales can spend up to 20 minutes underwater before coming back up and getting a breath. So, after you see one and it dives down, it might be a while before you get to see it again.
Humpbacks are unique in their family in that they can cooperate to hunt fish. There's a technique called bubble net feeding, where several humpbacks surround a large school of fish and blow bubbles around it to prevent fish from escaping. Then, the circle contracts and all the whales swim up, taking the entire school in one go. Once the dumb fish are in their mouth, they use their giant tongues to push out the water. The baleen plates, the mustache-like structures in their mouth, strain the fish, which are then swallowed whole. The throat of a humpback whale is about as wide as an orange. They have no teeth, so they can't swallow anything larger than that. If you happen to find yourself in the mouth of a humpback, don't worry, it won't swallow you alive.
Humpback whales spend their winter months down south where it's nice and warm. They'll mate and get their party on, but there's not much for them to eat down there, so they need to migrate north again during the summer to eat.
During their winter bacchanalia, they can go without eating for a few months. Winter is also their breeding season, and competition is fierce. Males sing songs to induce estrus in females and to give themselves a better chance of mating. So yep, throughout Earth and across species, ladies love musicians. All humpbacks in a region sing the same song, which can be up to 20 minutes long. The slow, deep sounds have been described as soothing. Records of them were even included in the Voyager spacecraft for aliens to check out. Just remember, aliens, they're meant to make you excited. Unfortunately, during the commercial whaling era, humpbacks were overhunted. By the 1950s, there were less than 500 alive in the whole world. But thanks to worldwide protections, their numbers have rebounded to almost 25,000. I love when conservation stories have a happy ending. It takes a lot of work, but it is possible to save our biodiversity. One of the largest animals in the world is making a comeback after centuries of overhunting. These marathon swimmers have the longest migrations of all mammals, and today we're meeting them on their journey.
Oh my god, it's right behind me.
Ah! This is the gentle leviathan, the Greay Whale.
Out into some open water now just off of Tofino, and we're really hoping to find some gray whales.
Gray whales are relatively large whales, measuring about 15 meters in length and weighing a hefty 27,000 kilograms. Their name comes from their gray pockmarks, which are usually scars from cuts and parasite wounds. They're the only surviving member of their family, Escherichthyidae, though they seem to be closely related to their cousins, the humpback whales and other rorquals.
This area in particular is known for seeing gray whales because it's right smack dab in the middle of their migratory path. So let's go see if we can find some gray whales.
Gray whales are only found in the Pacific Ocean. This area, from Alaska to Baja California, Mexico, is home to the only healthy gray whale population in the world, with over 20,000 individuals. Though according to population genetics specialists, there used to be over 100,000 before whaling began in full.
Gray whales are quite solitary, but right now we're standing right in the middle of their migratory path. When it's time to move on, they do end up creating almost a parade, and this area becomes quite populated with gray whales.
The only other population lives in the western Pacific, mostly around Russia and Japan, but it's critically endangered, also due to overhunting. This population has become functionally extinct, with only about 100 whales left. They also used to be found in the North Atlantic, along European coasts and eastern North America, but disappeared in the 1700s, likely also due to overhunting. Every few years, a gray whale is spotted in the Atlantic, but they're likely from the Pacific and made their way there through the Arctic Ocean. It's the end of the fall, so a lot of these whales are passing through as they head to their breeding grounds in the warm waters of Baja California. The captain was right. There it was.
We just saw what we came here for, the spray from a gray whale. We're just waiting for it to resurface again, and they typically stay down for 3 to 8 minutes before resurfacing, blowing from that blowhole, and taking another gulp of air. If you ever see a gray whale spray at the surface of the water, you might just want to say gesundheit, because that is their nose. In fact, Mustelids like the gray whale have a blowhole that actually looks like a nose because they have 2 nostrils sitting on top of their head.
Some of the most northerly whales can travel over 10,000 kilometers to their final destination, making this the longest migration of any mammal. Once they get there, there won't be a lot of food, so this might be their last chance to get a proper meal.
These gray whales can consume up to a ton of zooplankton every day. They do this by diving down into the water with their mouths wide open, gulping in that water, and then pushing it back out of their mouths through their baleen. So they have a gigantic tongue to force the water through, but everything that gets stuck in their baleen becomes dinner. Gray whales can be lefties or righties and develop a preference for diving on one side of their head rather than the other, kind of like us with our hands and writing. This does change the development of their musculature on their head, so they might end up being really beefy on one side and a little underdeveloped on the other. Later in life, this can even affect how healthy their eyes are, and end up going blind in one eye.
You can tell it's a gray whale by its color and by the shape of their dorsal side. Unlike other whales, gray whales don't have a dorsal fin. Instead, they have a series of dorsal bumps or knuckles.
So this whale is a 40-foot creature, but it's currently swimming in water that's not even 40 feet deep, so it can't dive deep enough to show us its tail. It's just kind of cruising at the surface to try and catch whatever it can.
But now it was time to head out to the open ocean where the whales can dive much deeper. And it was like stepping into another world. The fog was thick, making everything look grayscale. The waves were rough, and soon, all around us were gray whales.
We're out in the open ocean in the middle of a cloud, and we just hit the gray whale jackpot. There's got to be about 3 of them out there. And we're in much deeper water now, so we're gonna see some tails.
We were in the middle of what seemed to be a feeding frenzy. This area was rich in zooplankton, and eating them all is an opportunity whales can't pass up.
Come on, show us your tail. Give us a wave hello.
From here, they'll keep going to Mexico to mate or to give birth. Calving takes place in shallow lagoons of less than 5 meters in depth. Of course, this has become a major ecotourism draw, and thousands of people go see them every year.
There's the tail! Oh, what a fluke! Would you call it a lucky fluke to run into a bunch of gray whales? 'Cause I would.
They have become accustomed to people and are a lot more curious there than when they're in their feeding zones.
Oh, that's so cool. We just saw one of the gray whales flick its tail up as it took a deep dive. We're in much deeper water out here in the open ocean, so these whales here have the chance to dive as deep as they want, and when they do, that's when you'll see their tail come up.
When they eat, they like to turn sideways. This strategy helps them catch plankton in their northern feeding grounds, as well as bottom-dwelling crustaceans in the shallow parts of their migration route.
These really are gods among creatures, you know? Biologically, we are just not meant to be out here. But these creatures, these gigantic mammals, this is their domain. Like, this is where they live, where they eat, they sleep, and mate.
Like all baleen whales, they take huge bites and then filter the edible with their coarse, brush-like baleen plates. Gray whales have an average of 150 of these structures.
Next to the blue whale, the gray whale has the largest tongue in the world. And they use this gigantic tongue to push the water that they've gulped down through their baleen, which is what's filtering out all the food from the inside of their mouths. It's stuck in there, they can swallow down all that delicious zooplankton. Oh my god, it's right behind me. Ah! Oh, wow!
There you go, baby.
Yeah!
A lot of these females are pregnant, so they need to gain weight before they give birth to their 5-meter-long, 900-kilogram heavy babies. Newborns drink about 30 liters of milk a day, so there's a lot of pressure for the mom to get enough food to support them.
There it is! It's right there! And there it is, our beautiful gray whales. Here, off of Vancouver, seeing one of nature's greatest treasures. It's the giants of our world.
Hopefully soon we'll see an end to bogus research programs and hopefully a recovery of whale populations. This successful population of gray whales in the eastern Pacific has proven that endangered species can recover with the right conservation policies.
I can't believe I got to see 3 gray whales out on this trip today. To me, they're almost like mythical creatures, you know, something so huge and so powerful and mystical almost. But to be able to be in their presence feels like something really special. It's not a typical human experience, I don't think, so I'm really fortunate to have gotten to spend a day seeing 3 gray whales. It's unbelievable. I don't know, there's just something special and magical about these whales, you know? They're unfathomably huge. They're about as far removed from us as mammals as it gets. And yet, despite all that, they're also some of the most intelligent animals on the planet. So as different as we are from them, we do have a lot in common.
The vaquita is the most endangered whale in the world. They're also the smallest and cutest of them all. Their existence has been put at risk by illegal use of gill nets to catch fish that could be worth their weight in gold. To protect this tiny cetacean, a giant group of people from all walks of life has been assembled. They'll have to protect the vaquitas from criminal groups while using all the technological tools available for marine conservation. This is how to save the vaquita. The vaquita is one of the most critically endangered animals in the world. So what made these little porpoises so vulnerable? And what went wrong in our efforts to protect them? Let's start with the nice stuff. Vaquitas are one of the cutest animals alive. Imagine a baby dolphin panda wearing black lipstick in the shape of a smile. They're the smallest cetacean in the world. At 1.5 meters, these mini porpoises could fit in a bathtub, though we don't yet know if they like playing with rubber duckies. Their closest relatives are the equally adorable harbor porpoises, which live all around the North Atlantic. They're expert murky water hunters and use their sonar to capture prey in conditions few predators could. But because of this specialized hunting technique, the vaquitas' range is limited to a small corner of Mexican waters. They live in one of the most beautiful underwater ecosystems on Earth, the Sea of Cortez, a place so full of life that Jacques Cousteau nicknamed it the aquarium of the world. This is a relatively shallow sea, at around 50 meters. The Colorado River flows into the Gulf of California, bringing nutrients into the sea and making the water murky and perfect for the vaquita hunting techniques. Outside of this zone, the water gets clearer, deeper, and less productive, which makes it unsuitable for the vaquita. So, in a way, the vaquita is trapped in this small aquatic paradise, a pocket of amazing beauty and biodiversity. One of the vaquita's most notorious neighbors is the tatoba. At times, this fish has been more valuable than gold, which of course has attracted a lot of fishermen to the vaquita's waters. The tatoba is an endangered fish. It can be up to 2 meters long and weigh up to 100 kilograms, which makes it the largest fish in the drum family. They control their buoyancy using a swim bladder, which is basically an internal balloon they can inflate or deflate to make themselves more or less floaty. A fish this size needs a massive swim bladder. In this case, it's about 80 centimeters long and able to hold the same amount of air as a soccer ball. Sadly, swim bladders are used in traditional Chinese medicine as a tonic believed to treat skin diseases and improve general health. The tatoba's swim bladder is not only larger than most other fishes, but also thicker and more gelatinous, which is perceived as having additional medicinal components. These claims are absolutely false, but they've made the demand for tatoba skyrocket. And since they've become endangered and their swim bladders more rare, the prices have gone up to ridiculous extremes. A fresh swim bladder can go for up to $5,000 US. Even though local fishermen only get a small cut of it, it can be more than they make in a year fishing legally. From there, it gets dried up and smuggled into China, where a kilogram can fetch up to $80,000. That's more expensive than pure gold or some illegal chemicals we can't mention on this show. Since this is such profitable business with so many competing interests, international crime groups have joined the battle for the Sea of Cortez and made it harder for conservationists and government agencies to protect wildlife. They harass government agencies and NGOs and try to keep these waters free of any oversight, while also implying local fishermen to illegally catch tatoba. These fishermen often accidentally catch vaquitas, which are roughly the same size as their target fish. Because of the use of gill nets, the vaquita population plummeted from about 600 in 1997 to just 200 in 2008. And since the tatoba boom, their mortality has gone up to close to 50% a year. As of this video's release date, there are only around 10 vaquitas left alive. So even though both species are protected, the fisheries are just too profitable for fishermen. And in some cases, even if they aren't fishing for these species, large areas become off limits due to environmental protections. This is great for the animals, but it creates conflict between the animals we're trying to protect and the local communities who depend on fisheries for their survival. Local fishermen have depended on artisanal fisheries for decades. There are few jobs available outside the fishing industry, and some fishermen make under $10 a day outside peak seasons. To protect the vaquita, the government has banned gill nets. These are massive nets that catch everything in their path. They're cheap to make and use, but they don't discriminate and end up killing many animals besides the intended catch. Vaquitas, who are, of course, mammals, get caught up in these nets and drown, so it really makes sense to ban them. The area where they're most commonly seen is protected, and fishing here is completely illegal. This is called the Zero Tolerance Area, or ZTA, and it's illegal not only to fish there, but also to even sail in those waters. Without these protections, vaquitas could disappear completely in a matter of months. From the point of view of the fishermen, their most effective method of fishing and access to some of the most productive areas has been banned. And for a community that's already struggling economically, these restrictions are hard to follow. Wait, it's not all doom and gloom. There's still some hope for the vaquita. At first sight, the situation seems helpless, but there are lots of people working to save the vaquita. You might wonder, why? Why put so much time and resources into an animal whose entire population couldn't even field a football team? On a broad level, the disappearance of a species sends shockwaves through an ecosystem. we wouldn't only be losing the vaquita, we would also risk the collapse of the delicate balance of life in the northern Sea of Cortez. Also, lots of species have recovered from extreme population bottlenecks. Another marine mammal, the northern elephant seal, went from about 20 living individuals to a population 200,000 strong in just over a century. Bison in both North America and Europe recovered from near extinction due to breeding and rewilding projects. California condors went from 27 wild birds to 500 in our lifetime. So it's possible to save the vaquita. One of the reasons people tend to be pessimistic about the future of the vaquitas is that their numbers are so small, and they might not have enough genetic diversity to recover. So we asked Dr. Barbara Taylor and Dr. Lorenzo Rojas Bracho, two of the top experts on vaquita biology and conservation, about this problem.
Well, I think it's an interesting lesson for conservationists of all types that deal with small populations, because when I came through as a graduate student many years ago, it was basically if you got below 100, you were unlikely to be able to recover because of loss of genetic diversity. And then it was like, oh, definitely if you're lower than 50, there were these rules of thumbs that were probably not bad rules of thumb for all the species in the world and given the tools that we had at the time.
But some species can survive or even thrive despite having a very small genetic pool.
Yeah, and a good example, San Miguel foxes or Iceland foxes. I mean, their coefficient of inbreeding is really high, and they've been there, right? Surviving, and we have to change the way we think sometimes about the genetics.
We had this sort of unique opportunity because Lorenzo and colleagues were getting samples from vaquitas in the 1980s, 1990s, when there were hundreds, so they probably had the genetic diversity that vaquitas have had for hundreds of thousands of years. And we could compare their level of diversity to ones that we got in 2015, and there was no loss in genetic diversity. So basically, they didn't have any to begin with, so, they're less vulnerable to losing it.
So in other words, the vaquitas can recover. But the first thing that needs to happen is we need to stop vaquitas from getting caught in gill nets. To protect these adorable cetaceans, the Mexican government created the Zero Tolerance Area, where, as we mentioned earlier, it's illegal for all boats to enter at all. It's a positive step for conservation, and one that was long overdue. Scientists had been calling for protections for decades, but there had been almost no enforcement of conservation laws. And local fishermen hadn't been given alternatives to compensate them for their loss of income. It's a complex problem, so we asked the people in the field about trying to get gill nets out of the vaquita's habitat.
Hi, my name is Heidi Martinez, and I am the ship biologist on board Sea Shepherd boat. So the original mission actually was named Milagro. So Milagro started off with the retrieval of illegal nets. What was really shocking was that during the first couple of campaigns, a lot of Totoaba nets were retrieved. Within Milagro 3 to 6, there was about 1,113 nets that were retrieved from that area. And so those were a lot of nets that were in the water at all times. And 91% of those nets were all Totoaba fishing nets.
This, of course, made the Totoaba fishermen very mad. Some local fishermen saw this as a law imposed on them without consultation and enforced by foreigners, which, to a degree, was true. The fishermen wanted Sea Shepherd out of the Sea of Cortez, and Sea Shepherd wanted the fishermen's gill nets out of the vaquita's habitat. The tensions reached an all-time high when a fisherman died in an encounter with one of the NGO's boats. Sea Shepherd and other NGOs had been targets of fishermen and criminal groups for months. Their gill net removal activities disrupted the Totoaba fisheries, and the friction quickly escalated to violence. Locals, possibly aligned with criminal groups, had been throwing Molotov cocktails, knives, and bottles of fuel at their boats. But in 2020, a speedboat driven by locals crashed into one of the Sea Shepherd's vessels. One of them tragically died. It had been enough. A new conservation approach needed to be found that took into consideration the fishermen's livelihoods and diminished the roles of criminal groups. Sea Shepherd changed its philosophy and went from getting directly involved with fishermen to simply reporting illegal fishing activities to the Mexican Navy. And just as importantly, their boats became vessels to support scientific expeditions.
I think one of the challenges Sea Shepherd faces in what we're doing is that not a lot of people actually know the current state of Sea Shepherd. When they think of Sea Shepherd and its efforts here, a lot of it is very filtered version and not in the most positive light. And I think that that deters people from wanting to get involved, whether that's spreading awareness or even donating, where I think that there's a huge misconception of what our goal is here and what our mission is here and what we're doing recently and how well we have been collaborating with the Mexican government.
But despite having had approaches to wildlife conservation that not everyone agreed with, they still achieved a lot when vaquita conservation was even less publicized than it is today.
I got so blessed and to be able to have the opportunity to be there for the 2023 Vaquita survey, be with so many scientists and see a vaquita myself, that was incredible. But I think what was most life-changing than getting this experience was getting to hear, Dr. Barbara Taylor stating that the vaquita would have gone extinct if it wasn't for Sea Shepherd. And to me, that changed any doubts or questions that I had about Sea Shepherd's involvement with it.
Sea Shepherd's support of scientific projects has played a positive role in vaquita conservation. Up-to-date vaquita numbers are always needed. Locals often dispute the vaquita numbers, and at different times have called them not endangered or already extinct as a way to discredit conservation efforts. So let's go over how we know what we know and what scientists and conservationists are doing with that information.
The first estimates of vaquitas, and the first abundant estimates, were done using planes and ships and pretty standard methods that are used for telling how many animals are out there, whether they're on the land or in the water. And vaquitas were just particularly difficult because they're small, they never occur in big groups, they're usually singles or pairs, they don't splash. And so they're really hard to see and they avoid noise. So they'd avoid the ships. So they were really a difficult species to work with, and even more difficult from an airplane because they live in really productive water that you can't see through, turbid water.
Those early studies showed a decline in vaquita populations from 600 to 250 in just 11 years. But we needed more precise data. And if seeing them wasn't always possible, the next best thing was to try to hear them. For this, they use underwater recorders that log info every time they detect vaquita echolocation clicks. They operate 24 hours a day, so the first sample, using multiple recorders, had about 3,000 combined days of data.
It was right when the government had protected a large area and wanted to know whether vaquita were recovering, and instead the acoustics revealed this catastrophic decline that eventually went to about 50% per year. So you're losing half of the species every single year. And without that acoustic, which we could monitor every single year, we wouldn't have been able to know the status and raise the alarm.
To this day, these acoustic tools are crucial in population studies. They're combined with visual studies and drone footage to give us the most accurate population data available. But the numbers we're getting are dire. The last study, done in 2024, showed that there are about 10 vaquitas left in this small protected area. Researchers have tried conservation measures like keeping the vaquitas in open water pens, but these unfortunately failed. This was part of a larger project called Vaquita CPR. It was a desperate attempt to rescue vaquitas, temporarily move them into a sea pen, and buy them time until the gill nets were removed. In November 2017, the team rescued a female vaquita. It was the first time scientists were learning how vaquitas would do in semi-captivity and cared for by people. Some cetaceans, like bottlenose dolphins, can live and even breed in captivity, so there was a bit of hope. At first, she seemed to be doing well, but after a few hours, things took a turn for the worst. She was struggling, and her condition was quickly declining. The team released her back into the wild, but she came back. She knew she needed help. The veterinarians and researchers did everything they could to save her, but unfortunately, she died that night. The necropsy showed that she basically died of stress, and so the team decided to stop their mission. In one day, the hopes for vaquita protection in semi-captivity were crushed. The team was heartbroken, but their new approach and their next steps were clear. The answer would have to come from changes in human behavior. The vaquita who tragically passed was named Esperanza, which means hope in Spanish. Her name would live on as the inspiration for Project Esperanza, a new concerted effort series of initiatives to protect the remaining vaquitas. There was a lot of work to do. First, we needed to stop illegal fishing, but avoiding direct confrontation with local fishermen was super important. So instead of targeting them, the focus switched to targeting their gill nets in protected areas. The Mexican Navy installed 193 concrete blocks with steel hooks. Any net that goes near them gets stuck in the hooks and gets destroyed. So as a result, gill net fishing in these areas decreased by 90%. According to Dr. Lorenzo Rojas Bracho, these blocks are the main reason we still have vaquitas. The next thing that needed to happen was to convince fishermen to use more sustainable fishing gear. Local organizations like Pesca ABC and Pro Natura Noroeste have been trying to persuade the local fishermen to use hook and bait instead of gill nets. They've also removed hundreds of ghost nets, which are discarded nets in the ocean that continue to trap and kill animals. Maybe most importantly, conservation groups are engaging locals, and they're willingly participating in their projects.
We realize that if all the stakeholders agree to work jointly to protect vaquita in this case, or any species, you have a good chance of success. But if one of the stakeholders don't do their job, then the whole thing collapses. And probably that's one of the reasons why we have few vaquitas. And that stakeholder, unfortunately, were the fisheries authorities. The fisheries authorities were absent from any program to protect vaquitas.
The relationship between scientists and fishermen has improved. There's now better communication than ever before, and more locals are participating in surveys and protection campaigns. Scientists do Fisherman Days, where they take locals on their expeditions to explain their goals and methods. And thanks to the newly gained trust, fishermen are even helping to set up and retrieve the echolocation recorders.
Now we have had several workshops with the fishermen and sociologists and other experts to see where are the problems to transitioning to alternative fishing gear. But again, in this case, day one, you have to bring all the stakeholders and the fisherman principle, most important.
Locals are being involved and are receiving training to spot and identify vaquitas from boats, a dream job for any animal-loving person like you and me. So there is hope for the vaquita. Scientists, government officials, the Mexican Navy, fishermen, international NGOs, and independent supporters from around the world are united with the common goal of protecting the vaquita. Links to all of the groups mentioned in this episode are in the description, so click on them to join the team and help save the vaquita. So there you have it, one of the most complex conservation stories in the world, but not a unique one. All over the world, conservation efforts create conflict with locals who depend on the land or the sea to survive. So every conservation effort must include input and buy-in from local communities to be successful.
When we think of the biggest creatures that have ever lived, our minds might wander to the dinosaurs of yore. Diplodocus with its neck reaching up into the sky. Tyrannosaurus rex, that enormous and terrible lizard king. And the longest of them all, Patagotitan, which was about the size of 4 school buses parked end to end. But what if I was to tell you that the largest known animal to ever exist lives among us? They are here and now, swimming around the depths of our vast oceans. This is the blue whale.
Today we're talking about the mammal with the most, the blue whale. The blue whale is not just the largest mammal on Earth, it's very likely the largest animal to ever exist. Ever. No dinos or sea creatures from the past can compare. At least, not that we know of. And if there were, we probably would have found fossils by now. So how big are these blue cuties? Let's try our best to fully comprehend just how big a blue whale can be.
A blue whale is an incredibly long animal. The largest examples of blue whales are over 30 meters long. That's 20 average-sized humans laying end to end.
Next time you're at your family reunion, recruit your parents, your grandparents, your weird uncle, your kooky aunt, and your 2 favorite cousins to lay in a line. Then you simply have to ask 10 more members of your extended family to lay down too. Only now can you truly appreciate how long a blue whale is.
But their length isn't even the most impressive thing about blue whales when it comes to their sheer size. One of the largest ever found weighed over 190,000 kilograms.
Sticking with the family reunion metaphor, that's the equivalent of all the family you just asked to lay on the ground, plus another 2,480 people. To put that into perspective, that's the weight of you, your parents, your 4 grandparents, your 8 great-grandparents, your 16 great-great-grandparents, your 32 great-great-great-grandparents, your 64 great-great-great-great-grandparents, your 128 great-great-great-great-great-grandparents, your 256 great-great-great-great-great-great-grandparents, your 512 great-great-great-great-great-great-grandparents, and your 1,024 great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandparents. That's like every direct relative you've had since the year 1700, plus another 450 people. This blue human group would equal just a single blue whale.
The scale of these creatures is really quite dizzying. The flippers, for example, are around 3 meters long, or about the length of an SUV. While this is certainly enormous, the blue whale's flippers are considered small because they only represent about 12% of their body length. The longest flippers relative to body length in cetaceans goes to the humpback whale, which sports flippers that are 1/3 of their overall body length.
While we're on flippers, did you know that flippers are essentially just modified hands? If you were to x-ray a flipper, you would see the distinctive bones that make up these appendages. But let's keep going with our body scan of the big blue.
The eyes of the blue whale are about the size of a mini soccer ball. Compare that to our eyeballs, which are slightly smaller than a golf ball. Although the blue whale is the biggest creature on Earth, it doesn't have the biggest eyeballs either. That honor goes to the giant squid, which has peepers the size of a basketball. They need those humongous eyes in order to see in extremely low light conditions of the deep sea. But the blue whale makes do with a relatively smaller eye by foraging closer to the surface and singing songs to communicate with each other.
It would be incredible to see them in person. And who knows, maybe one day we will. There is so much lore surrounding the size of blue whales, including that you could park a Volkswagen Beetle in a blue whale's heart and swim through its arteries. Let's examine that whale of a tail.
While not the size of a compact car, the heart of the blue whale is still about 180 kilograms and 1.5 meters tall. That's about the size of 640 human hearts. While their arteries are large, they definitely aren't big enough to swim through. You could definitely send a volleyball through one of them with room to spare, though. Or if you're, say, an Olympic gymnast, you might be able to squeeze through the largest arteries.
Just as expected from an animal of their size, these huge mammals are also capable of producing the loudest sounds of any animal. They are as loud as a jet engine.
Blue whales don't have vocal cords like we do. Instead, their U-shaped voice box presses up against a specialized cushion of fat and muscle to produce these extremely loud sounds that can be heard up to thousands of kilometers away. Some of the sounds they produce, called infrasonic sounds, are so low that we humans aren't even capable of hearing them. But if we were close enough, we would certainly feel the vibrations in our bellies.
With anatomy this large, you would think that everything on a blue whale would be enormous. But one part is actually surprisingly small. I am, of course, talking about its throat.
The throat of a blue whale is actually only 10 to 20 centimeters wide. To compare, a human throat is about 2 centimeters wide, meaning that it's not even 10 times larger than a human's, despite the entire animal itself being 2,500 times heavier. The reason their throat is so small is simple. It's because these whales have adapted to eat very small prey.
Blue whales are what are called baleen whales, meaning that they have baleen plates, mustache-looking structures made of the same substance that our hair is made of, that filters out the tiny krill that they eat. It seems unlikely that the largest animal would eat one of the smallest, but when there's a krill, there's a whale.
To feed, the blue whale will charge at a group of krill, opening its massive jaws. The pleats on the underside of its lower jaw allow it to take in up to 70 tons of water and krill in a single mouthful. The whale will then press its tongue upwards to the roof of its mouth, forcing the water out, with their baleen plates keeping the krill in. The only thing left to do is swallow the krill, which presents no problem because the 1 to 2 centimeter krill go right down that 10 to 20 centimeter hatch. It's kinda like when kids at the pool spit water through their teeth. Only in their case, they're keeping millions of prey animals in their cavernous mouths.
It takes a lot of krill to power a body of that size, with blue whales eating upwards of 14,500 kilograms daily. That's like eating the equivalent weight of 3 elephants every single day.
Considering that blue whales are estimated to live 80 to 90 years, that's like eating close to 100,000 elephants worth of krill in a lifetime. But with around 700 trillion Antarctic krill, weighing about 400 million tons swimming around at any given time in the Southern Ocean alone, at least we know their food is in good supply. For now, at least.
For comparison, that's about how much all the humans on Earth weigh too.
Keeping krill in good supply is, as you can imagine, krilltical. We talked to our friend Diane, who's been studying blue whales in the Gulf of California for over 30 years, to learn more.
The whales are very good gardener of their own ecosystem. So the whale feed down below the tothic zone, where the phytoplankton is, and then it defecate at surface. And we also did experiments with the feces, looking at, in 3 different big bottles at sea, close to where the whales are, without just the normal water with the phytoplankton there. Same water with a little bit of feces, and the same water with double of feces. And the productivity after the first bottle, after a couple of days, went down. There was not enough nutrient. The phytoplankton just went down. In the second bottle, it went up after 2-3 days, and the other one went way up. So what happened is that in the feces, there's a lot of nutriment. They spend 1.5 months in the same place. They're not going and coming, and they stay there. And so if they stay there 1.5 months, 2 months, maybe what they do by feeding and defecating enhance so they can continue to feed.
In other words, whales eat krill in deep water. Then they poop at the surface. Bacteria turn the feces into food for microscopic plants, and their numbers explode. The plants feed krill, and they also multiply. And then the whale eats the krill. So the whales actively make the surface more productive by bringing nutrients from the bottom of the ocean to the surface. But eventually, it's time to move on. So where did these whales go? To find out, we asked our friend Dr. John Ryan, who listens to blue whale songs to track their numbers.
Blue whales, they just simply have to search farther and wider to find the krill. We can hear when they migrate, so we can They change, but that's because they change how they sing. So we can hear when they're migrating, and therefore we can listen and know how that migration changes from year to year. And that's where we learned that blue whales will change the timing of their migration by up to a third of the year, which is the full length of a migration period sometimes. And that's because they have to adapt. They have to always take advantage of when an ecosystem allows them to pack on energy stores.
So if there's food, they'll stick around. But if not, they'll go look for it elsewhere. It sounds simple at first, until you start wondering how the heck whales find krill in the vastness of the ocean.
In an environment where the physical features defined by different water masses can be very small scale, the whales are finding them persistently and consistently with precision that is just mind-blowing. And what's important about that is that's the only way they can survive. If they can't navigate a complex environment that's changing continuously and find those dense krill swarms, they won't persist as a species, because they need to consume so much food every day just to sustain that massive body. So the precision of a giant has blown my mind.
Another problem blue whales face is that, like everyone, they have some very annoying relatives.
Another day, it was that whale that was accompanied by Tursiops, bottlenose dolphin. And at the beginning, we found, oh, that's cool, because the dolphin, when they follow the whales, they come at surface before the whale, so it's easy to follow the whale, let's say, so especially if it's traveling. And that whale was kind of traveling, it was not making circle or anything. But these dolphins there was a group of maybe 25. They followed that whale the whole day. The whale was so upset. You have no idea. She really tried. It was a male, actually. He really tried to get away, but there was no point. I mean, they were always on her head, on his head. I felt that nobody has ever reported that maybe it would make. But like the frigate bird that follow gulls or other birds, so they regurgitate and they steal the fish they have. I had the feeling that these dolphins wanted that whale to regurgitate. It's crazy.
Who knew dolphins were that into krill tartare? And the worst part is that blue whales evolved from toothed whales, similar to dolphins. We know this from the fossil record, but what is harder to determine is just when these baleen structures started evolving. Unlike teeth, which are made of bone, baleen are more akin to hair or fingernails, meaning that they don't fossilize as well.
Regardless of when it occurred, it's the evolution of the baleen that seems to be the key to becoming so massive.
According to a recent paper, researchers used advanced trackers attached to the whales, analyzing over 10,000 feeding events of both toothed and baleen whales. They discovered that the cap for size for toothed whales is about the size of a sperm whale, because of the trade-off between calories it takes to hunt and the calories gained from eating the krill.
Baleen whales, like blue whales on the flip side, can take in as much as 10 million calories in a single enormous gulp, meaning that they can expend a lot less energy to intake nutrition, thereby allowing them to grow to such epic proportions.
But becoming so humongous is actually pretty recent for whales, at least in evolutionary terms, happening in the last few million years. And it all seems to be linked to the ice ages. As nutrients run off in times of melt, prey for baleen whales became super abundant. It's the same reason these whales today still travel long distances to their summer feeding grounds in polar climates. And it's these oscillations in food availability caused by the ice ages that are likely limiting them from becoming even larger.
Getting that large for a whale is kind of cheating anyway. Let me explain.
Animals that live exclusively in water have an easier time of existing as behemoths, since their every movement and ounce of mass doesn't need to fight against gravity. Whales in general lack the skeletal and muscular structure to hold their shape outside of water.
This is part of the reason why beached whales are doomed to die.
In addition to dehydration and overheating, just like a human lost in the desert, stranded whales will suffer what are called crush injuries. Crush injuries are just what they sound like, injuries sustained by a massive cetacean's organs being crushed internally by its own weight on land.
Even if humans manage to intervene and get the whale back into the water, they can die a few hours later anyway as a result of these crush injuries.
That's because being back in the water with the pressure off releases toxic products from their crushed organs into the whale's body. All that to say, it is only because they grow and evolve in an environment in which gravity has little effect. Are they free to balloon to sizes that would be difficult or even impossible to reach or maintain on land? So when we think all the way back to the biggest dinosaurs that ever lived, like Patagotitan, it actually makes the enormous feat of growing so enormous on land even more impressive.
It stands to reason that if you're the biggest around, your babies are going to be the biggest around too. Blue whale newborns win the award for chunkiest babies on Earth. Once out of the womb, like all mammals, they rely on mama's milk to stay chubby.
Blue whale babies will drink around 200 liters of their mama's extra fatty milk per day. While human milk is around 4% fat, the milk of the blue whale is about 50% fat to help the babies bulk up and gain 200 pounds a day. The thick, fatty consistency here is key for underwater feeding, since blue whale babies don't suckle like other mammals. Instead, the mama whale releases milk in a stream that the baby can drink without also chugging too much seawater.
Some of the research we've been most excited to learn about is whale tagging, which is basically a GoPro with extra sensors and a GPS tracker. Thanks to the work of groups like Cascadia Research, we get to know where they go, what they do, who they hang out with, and how long they stay out at night. We're finally getting to see life from a whale's point of view. That data will help us understand them better and protect them more efficiently. We're also getting better at slowing down for whales. There are amazing initiatives, like Blue Whale's Blue Skies, that work with shipping companies to move at a speed safe for whales, to give them time to dive out of the way.
Vessel strikes and entanglement in commercial fishing nets are a big problem. But pollution, habitat degradation, climate change, and even ocean noise can severely negatively impact these wonders of nature.
Thankfully, organizations like Blue Whale's Blue Skies, Cascadia Research, Diane and her team, NOAA Fisheries, the International Whaling Commission, the World Wildlife Federation, Whale and Dolphin Conservation, Save the Whales, the Blue Whale Project, and the Pacific Whale Foundation, and many others are stepping in to protect these whales and their habitats. If we act now, we can save these amazing creatures from becoming just more gigantic bones in our museums. But for now, if you can, support conservation organizations, sustainable ecotourism, and tell everyone about how lucky we are to live at the same time as the literally greatest animal to ever exist. Orcas are unrelenting underwater predators, as smart as they are vicious. With no predators to keep them in check, these massive dolphins have free run, or more accurately, free swim of the oceans. There is only one species that won't take that kind of bravado without a fight. Orcas, also known as killer whales, are technically the largest dolphin species. Their power and coordinated pack hunting is unmatched. Even the fearsome great white shark can fall prey to a hungry orca. If you're so terrifying you have jaws looking over its dorsal fin, you know you've found a true killer. Much like other dolphins, orcas live in tight-knit pods.
part of Orca society is working together to hunt. And hunt they do. Orcas are exceptionally skilled hunters, employing all kinds of specially developed tactics to increase their chances of a kill. And because of their intelligence and close bonds, orca hunting techniques are passed down from generation to generation, ensuring that every new orca that is born into the group can use these highly honed tactics down the line. The only sea creature that has been documented to disrupt an orca hunt is the humpback whale, and humpbacks love to mess with these apex killers whenever they get the chance. One theory among researchers is that orcas have been known to hunt the calves of humpback whales. So whenever a humpback sees orcas trying to hunt, they'll get in the middle to prevent the orca from making a successful kill. Just a little marine FU to the orcas. There have even been documented cases of single humpbacks pursuing and attacking whole pods of orcas. Sometimes these epic underwater melees can last for hours, full of breaching, intimidating tail slams, and loud vocalizations. The relative size of the humpbacks makes this a terrifying battle indeed. A small adult humpback is 4 times the weight of the largest orca. That's about the size difference of a human compared to a grizzly. So you can see how more times than not, the humpbacks send the orcas packing. Orcas are the only natural predator of humpback whales, so the beef, or blubber in this case, is personal. Because of their size, humpback adults are rarely a target for orcas. Rather, it's their young that are their coveted prey. Humpback whale calves are covered in nutrient-rich blubber, so they make a hearty meal for a pod of orcas. The only way to successfully hunt a baby humpback is to separate it from its mother, because these mama whales are extremely protective of their young. She'll shield the baby with her flippers, or even put it on her back to keep it away from the circling orcas. Often, other humpbacks will join the fight, trying to protect the baby by running off the orcas. The killer whales use a coordinated attack to separate mother and calf. Once the humpback mother is no longer there to save it, they'll exhaust and finally drown the calf. They'll sometimes do this by grabbing the whale's flippers and flipping it over so it can't escape, all while holding it underwater. Valiant, a humpback that frequents the Salish Sea between Canada's British Columbia and America's Washington state, is known for its aggressive behavior towards orcas. One possible explanation is the rake marks made by orca teeth that Valiant bears, likely from when it was just a calf. Perhaps the memory of that early attack drives it and its brethren towards revenge as adults. Despite the obvious animosity between these two species, there has been at least one recorded incident of orcas actually helping a humpback. In Western Australia, a pod of orcas was seen helping to free a humpback from a rope it had become entangled in. It's unclear if they were truly trying to help the humpback, but they certainly didn't attack it while it was all tied up. Other than humpbacks, killer whales have been known to hunt other species of whales as well, like minke, fin, gray, and beaked, to name a few. They often gang up on their prey, taking turns to bite and hold it underwater in order to tire it out and eventually drown it. Once it's incapacitated, the all-you-can-eat blubber buffet starts. But they don't just go after species in their own order of cetacea. They'll even attack and kill cousins in their own dolphin family. Killer whales have been known to hunt down and chow down on many different species of dolphins around the planet. While they are harder to catch due to their speed, dolphins make as good a snack as any for these hungry opportunists. The strategy is the same as with baby whales. Dolphins are bitten and held just below the surface in a brutal display of strength and ruthlessness. A couple of orcas can send a whole pod of dolphins in a mad scramble for safety. To avoid creating drag while opening their mouths underwater and slowing down mid-pursuit, killer whales will ram the dolphin from below, sending it flying through the air. The stunned dolphin then becomes much easier to snap up. while they prey on lots of other mammals like seals, sea lions, penguins, and porpoises, as well as fish from salmon all the way up to great white sharks. Nothing preys on orcas. Great whites are so afraid of orcas that they are known to immediately leave the area if a pod of orcas splashes up. In particularly brutal fashion, orcas will often attack from below, flipping the great white over so it can no longer swim. Then, they swiftly snatch the nutrient-rich liver right out and leave the rest of its carcass for fish food. So why, if orcas are such brutal killers, do they not attack humans? After all the kidnapping and captivity, the hunting and the pollution of their habitat, why don't orcas pick off beachgoers like popcorn from a bag? Despite giving them every reason to hate us, there has never been a documented kill of a human by an orca in the wild. Even after all the reports of orcas capsizing boats on the coast of Spain and Portugal, the passengers who took unwilling swims were left completely unharmed. One explanation could point to their diets. Orcas commonly prefer foods that are suited to their nutritional needs and their environment. While killer whales in the Antarctic down penguins and blubber-rich seals, orcas off the North American Northern Pacific coast eat almost exclusively salmon to fuel their bodies. The answer as to why killer whales don't eat people could be as simple as, we don't look delicious to them. We might be too skinny compared to sumptuously fat marine mammals. Let's hope they never get a taste for humans, because as we know now, they'll pass that gruesome knowledge down for generations to come. A murky water hunter with a sixth sense for finding fresh meat. Some might say it's ugly, but if you ask the locals, they'll tell you it might steal your heart and take it to the depths of the Amazon River. These are the South American river dolphins. When you think Amazonian apex predator, you're probably thinking harpy eagles, jaguars, and caiman. But in the rivers and flooded forests lives a deadly predator with the face of an angel. Maybe angel-faced is pushing it a bit, but just look at these guys. Amazonian river dolphins are cute killers, though maybe not as conventionally beautiful as their cousins, the bottlenose dolphins. They're one of several river dolphin species in South America. There's some taxonomic controversy, but the species usually recognized are the Bolivian river dolphin, the Araguayan river dolphin of Brazil, the Amazon river dolphin, and the Orinoco river dolphin. Some scientists claim they're all subspecies of the same species, so for simplicity's sake, we'll call them all by their common name, botos. Botos evolved from marine dolphins, but nobody knows for sure how they got to South America. They could have entered the continent from the Atlantic through the Amazon Delta, but it's also possible that they came from the Pacific side before the formation of the Andes. These river dolphins are thousands of kilometers away from their closest seafaring relative, the La Plata dolphin, the only river dolphin known to live in saltwater estuaries as well as the coast of the South Atlantic. Though their biology differs from marine dolphins in fundamental ways. Marine dolphins, such as the common dolphins or the bottlenose, are built for speed. They have to travel vast distances in search of food and will catch fish in the open water. Their double-slitted eyes work equally well in and out of the water. And they're able to dive up to 40 meters in search of fish. Botos, on the other hand, are built for agility. The levels of the rivers they live in can fluctuate up to 12 meters. And when those levels are high, it floods the forest. And the fish head out there because it offers more safety than open rivers and more feeding opportunities. Botos need to be able to follow their prey into those flooded environments full of obstacles. That's why being smaller and more pliable is a must when navigating and hunting in the flooded jungle. While bottlenose dolphins are about 4 meters long and weigh up to 300 kilograms, botos are just over half the weight of a bottleneck and are just about 2.5 meters long. Boto's females are even smaller, which is unique among river dolphins. In Asian species, females tend to be larger than males. Marine dolphins are built like arrows. Their neck vertebrae are fused to keep them straight when swimming at high speeds. Boto's vertebrae are not fused. This allows them to turn their head 90 degrees. Because of their necks, when they surface for air, bottlenoses have to do a bigger jump. Botos are more flexible and only have to come out slightly to expose their blowholes.
That doesn't mean they can't jump, though. They've been documented breaching over 3 meters out of the water.
But while a marine cetacean like a Dahl's porpoise can swim at 70 kilometers an hour, and a bottlenose can reach speeds of 35 kilometers an hour, a Boto can only swim at 20 kilometers an hour. Though normally they only swim at a leisurely 3 kilometers an hour. They're the slow walkers of the dolphin family.
We've kind of been burying the lead here, but yes, Botos are adorably pink.
But unlike flamingos and other pink birds who get their coloration from their food, Botos get it from scraping their body on rocks and plants.
So yep, they're basically covered in scars. But it's cool, chicks take scars.
In general, older males will be pinker because in addition to having to swim in rough areas, they'll fight each other for access to females. Botos are less gregarious than marine dolphins, usually hanging out in duos or trios. Though because of the nature of their habitat, they're found in higher densities than other dolphins in their ecosystems.
They have a lot of neighbors, but not a lot of friends.
Some exceptionally large groups of over 30 dolphins have been documented, but they're extremely rare. During the rainy season, the females and the young spend most of their time in the flooded forest, while the males stay in the river. That doesn't mean the males get less of a meal. South American tropical rainforests are packed with all sorts of yummy food.
And if you're starting to think that they're not as brutal as their saltwater relatives, you'd better reconsider, because one of the Boto's favorite meals is piranhas.
During the dry season, when all the fish are concentrated in a relatively small area, Botos can be a bit picky with their food. But during the flooding season, they catch whatever they can.
They have been observed cracking open freshwater crabs and turtles. These adorable predators eat about 5% of their body weight every day. And the biggest key to their hunting success is their echolocation.
Botos have a huge echolocation organ on their head, officially and hilariously called a melon, which helps them find their way in the dark and murky waters of the rainforest. But since the jungle is full of trees and rocks and sandbanks, the echo from a single click might be too confusing.
River dolphins produce about 80 clicks per second to give them constantly updating spatial mapping of their surroundings.
Their clicks aren't nearly as loud as those of dolphins in marine environments, but Botos don't need them to travel as far, since their hunting grounds are smaller.
Botos are deeply entrenched in several Amazonian cultures' folklore.
They're often portrayed as seductive shapeshifters who can take on the shape of a handsome man who attends parties and lures beautiful women to the river.
That's what I'm talking about.
Hey, sounds like our producer Andreas could be one.
Unfortunately, their charm doesn't protect them from fishermen, who often accidentally catch them and other river cetaceans in their nets, where the Botos suffocate to death. More recently, some fishermen have come to use river dolphin meat as bait. Others deliberately kill them because they damage fishing equipment. This has led to a rapid decline in their populations. The Amazonian river dolphin is an endangered species, and local governments have banned the killing of dolphins and put a moratorium on fishing species caught with Boto meat.
Hopefully, as more people become aware of their plight, they'll get better protection. And we might see them again in human form at a party, hitting on beautiful people like you.
A species' survival is entirely dependent on its ability to exploit and compete for the resources in their ecosystem. But sometimes those ecosystems change, and animals that have excelled with one strategy for thousands of years all of a sudden need to adapt. This can mean specializing in a new niche, broadening their niche to a more general diet, or pushing into an entirely different territory. Over time, this can lead to the creation of a new species. Amphibious mammals. Currently, several species of terrestrial mammals are dealing with ecosystem changes that have them turn into a life in the water.
Take this mother hippopotamus and her young son Sebastian, who is just learning to swim and is sticking close to mom.
Here in Canada on Vancouver Island live the sea wolves. These wolves are a population of gray wolf that are beginning to draw a genetic line in the sand, or beach. Unlike interior wolves, who primarily eat elk and deer, these coastal wolves eat seafood. Their diet is made primarily of salmon, but they also eat clams, seals, otters, and marine carrion. These elusive wolves roam the coast in packs of up to 20. They travel great distances in search of food, either by land or sea, and have been recorded swimming 12 kilometers in a single go. They are roughly 20% smaller than interior gray wolves, and DNA testing has found that they are actually genetically distinct from their mainland cousins. When hunting salmon, they hunt much like grizzly bears. They stand in the shallows where the salmon are spawning and catch them as they jump out of the water. These wolves were driven to the coasts and islands as their original territory was logged, leaving much less room for prey and predators to survive. Yet, while life on the coast isn't what gray wolves have excelled at historically, they have found some advantages. Hunting small prey like salmon is a lot safer than hunting their traditional diet of large ungulates, which could injure a wolf during the hunt. If interior wolves wanted to hunt salmon, they'd be competing with grizzly bears, who take to the islands in much smaller numbers, if at all.
Then one of the great epic struggles of nature begins. Day after day, week after week.
Grizzly bears are amphibious mammals, but they don't swim all that often. They primarily hang out in the shallows, waiting for salmon. Polar bears, on the other hand, are much more aquatic. Their habitat is made up of ice, and as that ice melts, they must take to the seas far more often. They have huge paws, designed for pushing their aerodynamic bodies through the water. They spend the majority of their time in the water traveling, preferring to ambush seals at seal holes rather than diving for them. Though, they will use the water as a means to approach unsuspecting prey stealthily. But they're not alone. Jaguars too use the water to silently approach their prey before striking. Living in such vast, diverse, and changing ecosystems, jaguars have become much more generalist in their diet than other big cats. They are fantastic swimmers and will dive into the water to hunt turtles, fish, capybaras, and caiman. In the Sundarbans, in the mangrove forest, tigers often take to the water to cross from island to island in search of prey. While tigers are less amphibious than jaguars, if their prey tries to escape them in the water, they will dive in pursuit. Though in the East, the cat that reigns supreme among amphibious mammals is the aptly named fishing cat. These rare felines are found in the Bay of Bengal, with most of them living in the mangrove forests and swamps of the Sundarbans. These cats are right at home in the water. They are excellent swimmers and hunt their aquatic prey either by fishing it out from the surface with their big paws or by diving in to get it. These bulky-looking cats might not look like amazing swimmers, but they have a few adaptations that give them an edge. Their paws are partially webbed. This helps propel them through the water as well as giving them more surface area to walk on when strolling through the muddy wetlands, stopping them from sinking in. They also have thick layers of fur perfectly adapted for life in the water. The bottom layer is short and dense. This keeps the fishing cat's skin dry and warm while swimming. The top layer is longer, and this is where they get their pattern. This is used for camouflage.
It looks like revenge, but the cat will be all right, a little wiser and cleaner.
Fishing cats took to the water for survival. There was far too much competition on land from similar predators, but now they face the opposite problem. As humans are pushing further and further into their territory, the wetlands are beginning to disappear, and the fishing cat will be left to either adapt or die. While the kingfisher might hold the title for the most graceful diver, perhaps the cutest diver is the ridiculously adorable water shrew. These shrews are the smallest warm-blooded diving species in the world. They're about the size of your thumb. They are primarily insectivorous and have found a lot of success hunting larvae in the water. They can dive for up to 45 seconds. Not the longest dive in the world, but it's long enough for them to catch their prey. When they dive, their fur fills up with bubbles, and when they stop swimming, the bubbles push the shrew straight up to the surface, like an adorable little life jacket. These bubbles also give the shrews a layer of insulation, reducing heat loss underwater by about 50%. This is especially helpful for the North American species which dive in cold water for most of the year. Though, the North American species have another adaptation for staying warm during their cold dives. They can control their metabolic demands, creating more body heat on command. There are even some reports of water shrews that are able to walk on water.
You gotta get this, Eric. This is like pretty significant now.
Their feet are covered in little fringes of hair that may help trap air bubbles like their fur, allowing them to not break surface tension. This could be helpful when escaping predators, or possibly when hunting prey as it emerges from the water. Unlike all the other animals we've talked about who have changed their behavior to take advantage of a new or different ecological niche, the swimming pigs of the Bahamas started swimming after the discovery of an entirely different niche: tourists. The pigs of Big Major K have discovered that if they're really cute, humans will feed them. And as it turns out, swimming pigs are in fact pretty damn cute. We're not entirely certain how the pigs got to the island in the first place. They may have been brought there by people hoping to settle. They may have swam to shore after a boat capsized, or they may have been brought as tourist traps. Whatever the reason, they are certainly making the best of it. There isn't a lot of food for them to eat on the island, so their diet relies entirely on what people bring them, hence the cuteness. But this isn't a habitat that they chose to push into. Instead, they're making do in a habitat where they're not meant to be. Recently, 10 pigs were found dead on the island. This was in part due to people giving them alcohol. But autopsies revealed that it was primarily from ingesting large quantities of sand. Tourists would throw their food on the beach, which the pigs would then swallow whole, sand and all. This small island leaves them little room to adapt. A couple of dry months can easily decimate their populations, forcing them to eat and drink things that they shouldn't. This is not the first time that mammals have sought new niches in the water. The ancestors of whales and dolphins turned to the sea for food and slowly transitioned from terrestrial to amphibian to fully aquatic. Will these more recent changes in behavior lead to a more permanent split? With the world changing as rapidly as it is, it's anyone's guess.
This is the home of the greatest predator in the world, the polar bear. Living among polar bears is extremely dangerous.
Yeah, they're climbing right up onto the vehicle, trying to see us in the windows.
And as the polar ice melts, these polar bears are spending more time among us than ever before.
I'm face to face with the polar bear.
Yet, those who live in Churchill, Manitoba have found surprising ways to coexist with the bears, and that relationship might be what saves the species from extinction.
This might be the most meaningful encounter I've had through all my experience here with Animalogic. Today we're in Churchill, Manitoba, paying a visit to the king of the north, the largest bear in the world, the polar bear. This is one of the largest towns on the Hudson Bay, and every year thousands of people come to see one of the greatest hunters on Earth.
Churchill was originally a port built by the Hudson Bay Company to ship pelts to England and as a fort to protect Canada from an invasion from the Arctic.
As demand for fur dwindled and national security concerns shifted elsewhere, the town of Churchill became an afterthought.
In the late 40s, it was such a forgotten area that Britain had plans to conduct nuclear tests in the region. This would have likely killed the entire bear population. But the weather was too harsh for the British nuclear scientists, and they chose to detonate their bombs in the outback of Australia instead.
The town only became notorious because of stories of bear attacks, and the issues the locals were facing with aggressive bears became international news. The problem bears were initially relocated via plane and helicopter. These dramatic scenes attracted the interest of environmentalists and celebrities who traveled to town to see the bears. These were some of the first polar bear watching tourists.
This is one of the southernmost polar bear populations and one of the most accessible. The geography of the town, as well as the several freshwater rivers that flow into the bay, make the water here freeze earlier than in some more northerly locations. Bears start arriving in the summer and stay on land until the fall. Late October is the best time to see them, as it's when the ice starts to form and bears venture out onto the ice to look for seals. Though if you come here in July, you can see fat bears returning from the ocean and frolicking among wildflowers. One of the few places in the world where this happens. Regardless of the season, driving outside of town requires extreme caution.
This really isn't a place that I'd recommend going for a nighttime jog, unless of course you're faster than a polar bear, which, spoiler alert, you're not.
Polar bears are incredibly fast and powerful on land, but they're technically marine mammals. They're found throughout the Arctic's ring of life. Their scientific name, Ursus maritimus, means the bear from the sea. This is because for most of the year, they're out on the Arctic ice looking for its favorite prey, seals.
In a couple months from now, these seals will only be able to breathe by popping up through breathing holes in the ice. And this guy here, he's gonna make a pretty delicious meal for a polar bear in a couple months.
The entire biology of their digestive system is geared towards the consumption of marine mammal fat. Seals are a relatively easy prey because they come out of the water to breathe through breathing holes. Polar bears' huge schnozzes can sniff a breathing hole from over 1 kilometer away and will patiently wait for a seal to surface. Once they do, they grab it with their gigantic arms and pull it out of the water. Then, a bite to the head is the coup de grace. When the ice melts, this population of polar bears has to come to land and wait until the ice freezes again. During that time, they don't eat much.
By this time of year, the bears have been fasting for over 4 months, so they're starving. And I'm out here looking like a tasty snack.
Summertime is the lean months for bears, and they have to make do with less nutritious food. Studies have found not only birds, eggs, and small mammals, but also vegetation like grasses and berries in their feces. Sometimes, if they're lucky, a whale will wash ashore and provide a very welcome meal. And on very rare occasions, larger bears have been seen catching the belugas that come to give birth in the Churchill River. But these are only occasional treats, and bears will usually go hungry for about 15 weeks.
Today is going to be an opportunity of a lifetime, and I can't tell you how excited I am. We're going to be going out with Lazy Bear Expeditions on this giant tundra crawler to go and meet some bears on their turf. I can't wait.
These trucks are absolutely massive. The windows are about 3 meters high to prevent even the largest bears from trying something sneaky.
Oh yeah, they're climbing right up onto the vehicle, trying to see us in the windows.
And the observation deck gives us the best view of this majestic tundra landscape.
This is almost worse traffic than Toronto. Arctic traffic. Currently on the observation deck of this Arctic crawler, and I'm as safe as can be up here. Even the tallest polar bear can't reach me. It can see me from below, though.
Right now, we're entering the wildlife management area, the best place to safely see polar bears in the region. But out on the tundra, wildlife can be difficult to spot.
Welcome to everyone's favorite game. Is it a rock or is it an animal? Rock and roll, baby! That's an Arctic fox. Oh, negative 50 points. That's a rock. Nope, that's just me reaching rock bottom. What, you thought that was a rock? No, polar bear.
Loser.
Nope, that's Dwayne Johnson, aka The Rock. All right, let's see the points on the board.
Loser.
This has been Animalogic's Is It a Rock or Is It an Animal? Tune in next week.
After a few hours out on the tundra, we finally spotted our first couple of bears. But they were far away and in an inaccessible spot for us.
They're right there. Oh my gosh. They've just been resting right in the trees.
So we kept searching, and then magic happened.
Oh, wow. And there it is. It's our first big, beautiful bear. This polar bear's just taking himself for a little stroll down the side of the Hudson Bay. Now he's probably scanning the shoreline looking for washed up seals or belugas. Any kind of marine mammal would be an easy snack for him if it washed up.
And then it got even better. A mama and her yearling cub who came straight up to us to check us out.
Oh my god, wait, how many are there? There are two. 2 polar bears.
This is one of the most magical moments animal lovers can experience. Seeing an apex predator gently approach you and look at you from just a few centimeters away can be life-changing. It's the reason every year over 10,000 ecotourists come here to get a glimpse at the king.
emotional. Mama's coming to see us. I'm face to face with the polar bear. She's curious to see us.
Don't get too close. It's not cute. It has claws longer than your fingers.
I'm not putting my hand on the thing, don't worry. I don't plan on touching it. And just to tell you, I'm not lying. Smelling my boot. I don't even know how to feel right now, but my eyes can't stop crying. This mama bear is just one of the most beautiful creatures I've ever seen. This might be the most meaningful encounter I've had through all my experience here with Animalogic. I am just so beyond emotional about this, and they're truly fearless. But I feel honored that this bear is giving us some time of its day and showing us its extreme curiosity.
Up close, after their beautiful long faces and their bright, curious eyes, the next thing you notice is their gigantic paws.
Most of the animals up here have large feet to prevent from sinking into the snow, but polar bears take that to the next level and have evolved these enormous furry paddles.
Out in the open water, bears have to swim between ice islands in search of better feeding opportunities. And when the ice melts, they often have to swim back to the mainland. Polar bears can swim vast distances, and some have been recorded to swim up to 800 kilometers over a few days. These trips can be absolute odysseys, and the average adult bear can swim up to 40 kilometers in a single go. This, of course, takes a massive toll on them, and most yearlings don't survive them.
To protect themselves from the cold, they have the advantage of being absolutely massive and having a thick coat of fur.
Their round shape helps them lose less heat via the skin by decreasing their surface to volume ratio.
Like other northern animals, these guys have smaller ears and shorter legs, all to help retain heat.
All the animals out here are basically striving for the same thing: become an orb, obviously. And the reason for that is because an orb has the lowest surface area to volume ratio, and that means it's the best for heat retention. Their coat has 2 layers of dense fur, and below that, there's at least 10 centimeters of fat tissue. Blood vessels attached to their fat deposits can be opened or constrained to help in thermoregulation.
They're also giving us a wonderful view of the fuzzy underside of their feet, which is what helps retain heat and pad them from the frigid cold on the ice.
All of this is necessary for survival, but while cubs build the bulk to be independent, they'll have to rely on mom.
This pair you see behind me is a mother and her cub. The cub is probably getting very close to 2 years, at which point it's time to go forge its own path. But for now, there's still time to take a cozy afternoon nap with mom. My heart.
So this mama polar bear is probably somewhere between 400 and 500 pounds, but at peak weight, she'd probably be more like 700 or 800. The reason why she probably lost so much weight is right behind me. Having a cub is a massive investment for the mother, and that usually means losing up to half of their body weight just in pure energy expenditure. The Churchill population is notorious because cubs become independent when they're 1.5 years old, as opposed to 2.5 in other populations. The availability of food and denning sites makes their youth a bit easier than that of bears in other areas.
The area around Churchill is rich in peat, and dens built in this kind of soil are especially warm, feeling around -5 even when it's -30 outside. For an animal this well equipped for the cold, it must feel like a warm, comfy sauna.
When the cubs grow older, they come back to their baby dens. But these pampered bears are becoming the exception, and soon their world might change forever.
Though global populations are relatively stable, some populations are declining, mostly due to the shortened winter season in the Arctic.
You've probably seen pictures of starving bears on melting sea ice, and though that's obviously worrying, there's another issue that we'll be forced to tackle within the next couple of decades: human-bear conflict.
Luckily, the experiences of Churchill give us a roadmap to deal with these situations.
While many aggressive bears were successfully relocated, unfortunately, some kept coming back and had to eventually be put down when they got into town. Luckily, there were still military buildings from the old fort days, and an idea came up to lock up the problem bears. It was a 3-strike type of situation.
On their first strike, they'd be locked up for a couple of weeks. On their second strike, they'd be locked up until November. On their third strike, they'd be caught and placed in a zoo or put down if nobody could take them. But bears were still coming into town, and it was discovered that it was the dumpster that attracted the bears the most. More importantly, cubs that were coming to the dumpsters with their moms were more likely to return to town when they were older. That's right, the babies were getting bad habits from their mom. The dumpster was also dangerous for them, as they would basically eat anything with a scent. Antifreeze, battery acid, car oil, anything. The likelihood of intoxication is very high, so the town of Churchill shut it down. The town now ships all of their garbage to a dump far away from bears.
The money from tourism helps fund these measures to protect bears. But there might be issues that money can't fix. Though the global population of bears is hard to estimate and seems to be at the moment relatively stable in some parts of their range, there are areas where they're declining. Polar bears don't travel nomadically around the Arctic, but rather they stay within certain limits called subpopulations.
The most studied subpopulations are those of the Hudson Bay and the Beaufort Sea, and there's strong evidence that they're declining. Longer summers mean longer fasting periods, which lead to lower reproductive rates. In some cases, males will even eat cubs.
In the Hudson Bay, they're also facing extra threats from orcas and grizzlies, which are finding it easier to survive here. Grizzlies are smaller, but can usually beat up a polar bear in combat. Orcas used to stay away from the bay because sea ice would restrict access. But now, with less ice, they're able to get in and take seals and belugas. This competition for resources will affect the polar bears negatively.
Despite being surrounded from all angles by these big tundra vehicles, this polar bear is just going for a stroll, not a care in the world. Whole reason? Because it is an apex predator. There's nothing out here that's going to be hunting it, so what is there to be afraid of?
More bears are getting into human settlements, which often leads to them being killed. In some areas, there's a belief that polar bears are increasing because they're seen more around town. But this more likely means that they're there because they can't find proper food elsewhere.
Following Churchill's example of identifying and removing problem bears, removing access to garbage dumps, and having a system in place for chasing away the curious bears will save both bear and human lives.
Churchill's strategy might not suit every community in the Arctic, but it does give a well-documented case study on how to deal with human-bear conflict.
Hopefully, more northern communities within the polar bear's natural range will follow this example, and this majestic species will continue to thrive and sploot for years to come. Oh my gosh, it's just a bear sploot. I see my cat do this at home, but seeing the largest carnivoran in the world do the same pose is just mind-blowing. So that was it. Thanks for joining us on our polar bear adventure. It's been an experience of a lifetime for me to see so many of these amazing bears out here.
The Canadian Pacific Coast, a majestic, island-speckled coastline home to the densest population of... Oh, what's that smell?
Ooh, oh no, somebody stepped on a dead fish over here. It's not pretty. Oh, there's full of eggs. Oh, you can smell that. I'm probably gonna smell like fish guts for days to come. It's gonna be great.
It may stink, but that's how you know that you're in beach bear country. A few weeks ago, when we were filming grizzlies out in the Rockies, we made what turned out to be quite a controversial statement about grizzly bears being the best bears. Well, we heard your comments, and so we thought we'd better check out that bear that many of you consider best. The black bear.
We're heading out onto the water just outside Tofino, British Columbia, to try and see what a black bear has on the menu for breakfast.
While there is a huge variety of black bear subspecies, from the champagne-colored spirit bears to the cinnamon bears to the ice blue glacier bears, we thought we would visit the coolest members of Clan Black Bear, the beach bears, or coastal black bears. We went out early in the morning, when the tide is low and coastal bears come down to the beach to look for breakfast. It didn't take long until we spotted something in the distance. Hopefully not another bear-looking rock. We got a little closer, and luckily, it wasn't a rock. It was one of the largest carnivores in North America.
We just spotted a bear. He's just walking along the coast, right along the riverbank. Big. It's a big bear.
Coastal bears are a subspecies of black bear. Their range is relatively small, occupying most of the north and west parts of the island. But in this small range, they've found paradise. The reason for their success here is they've become master fishermen.
He found a big old rock, and he's flipping it over, looking for some breakfast.
Like other bears, coastal bears take full advantage of the salmon run in the fall. But they have also learned to catch small fish and crustaceans caught in tide pools on the beach.
Most of a black bear's diet is vegetation, like berries and roots and leaves, but 15% of their diet does need to be protein. And where they find that, for the most part, is down by the water here. So they're looking for invertebrates like barnacles and crustaceans. He's probably having some crab over there. I'm a little jealous. It's a good idea.
They're a lot stronger than they look, and they use their bulk to roll over massive rocks looking for anything hiding underneath. You can find these bears on the hundreds of islands around Tofino, and they get around by swimming. These coastal bears have evolved extra webbing in their paws to make their commutes a little easier.
Vancouver Island is home to the densest population of black bears in the world. It actually has about 20,000 individuals living on the island.
It's the end of the fall, so coastal bears are rushing to pack on the pounds before their winter hibernation. They leave no stone unturned in their search for food, not even massive boulders. In parts of their range, black bears are entirely nocturnal. They're thought to do this to avoid confrontations with the larger and more aggressive brown bears. But here on the island, there are no brown bears, so black bears are free to look for food anytime they want.
We just spotted another bear on the coastline. We're gonna try and get in close. We gotta be quiet.
Despite being the third largest terrestrial carnivores in North America, they can be very skittish. And they know to fear humans. When we're around, even the sound of the waves is enough to send them running back to the safety of the tree line.
Oh wow. That's the waves. That's not us. That's scared kind of waves.
After seeing them on the beach, we traveled inland to see them at their other favorite spot. And it was a boneyard.
This riverbank is like a salmon graveyard, just strewn with bits and pieces and bones. Pure carnage.
Its odor? Well, rank would be putting it lightly.
This river here is just littered with fish that did not survive the spawning process. Oof, you can smell them. Yeah, I can smell that. Oh, you can smell that. Oh, can you smell that? That's fish. Fish that are rotting, but also fish that are reproducing. It makes for quite the pungent smell. I think I've stepped in so many rotting carcasses of fish that I'm probably gonna end up with maggots in my shoes. Yum.
This is a good sign. Some of the fish were clean to the bone, and there was a good chance that bears were the culprit.
Oh yeah, we're getting really close to a black bear. Look at this. But here's some evidence that we're on the right trail. There are fish heads and tails, little bits and pieces. And these flies are cleaning up the job that's been left behind by a black bear. In the back of this area over here, you can see there's a pile of what looks like berries. And that's what's been undigested and left behind by a bear. Berry bear poop.
Every year, salmon come back from the ocean and swim up rivers to spawn and die.
This is the perfect spot to see them because the water slows down right along the bank here. That's where the salmon like to come and take a little rest before they carry on upstream. Oh, there he goes. There he goes. Did you see that? These salmon might smell, but they've actually achieved the ultimate goal for a salmon. The last step in a salmon's life is to pass on their genes. So they'll put everything they've got to swim upstream into these river deltas and estuaries, where they'll lay their eggs, fertilize them, and
die. Millions of salmon can swim up a single river, which gives predators a good chance to get some easy meals.
Walking along the river here feels pretty special because I'm seeing all kinds of organisms gathered here for the exact same reason. The gulls, the eagles, the anglers, and the black bears are all here to get their fill of salmon. We got a tip that there's a mother and her cub who are fishing around this area. We're really, really hoping that we might come across them.
And then we spotted something across the bank.
What is that? I think we found it. I think there's a black bear up ahead. Oh my God, there they are. There's a mother and her cub.
This cub is a yearling. She's about to go into her last winter with her mother. Her mom is teaching her everything she needs to know to survive on her own, including the best feeding spots.
Nobody goes to the buffet trying to slim down, let's be honest. And this right next to me is an all-you-can-eat salmon buffet.
Their strategy is quite simple. Wade out into the freezing cold water and wait for a salmon to jump out of the river and into their mouths.
She's right down the riverbanks. We're following along. We have to be quiet. There she is.
though sometimes it's a bit easier to pick one up that's already died. It's just, less tasty.
Watching these bears just so deftly pick up these fish and carry them up the bank makes me think that they're kind of like giant raccoons on steroids. More like bearoids. Oh.
The yearling is waiting up in a tree, safe from harm's way, as she watches her mama fish down the river.
Can you see that? The black bear just caught a fish. She's tearing it apart. Right behind me. That's amazing.
And now it's the yearling's turn. She makes her way down the riverbank and tries her paw at fishing. She'll soon need to master this skill.
Do you see her? Oh, here she comes. She's coming down to the riverbank.
This yearling got lucky and made off with a salmon that's almost as long as she is.
Oh, she's got a massive salmon. And off she goes into the woods with her prized fish.
This area has milder winters than most of the rest of the black bear's range. That means that they can afford to gorge for longer and spend less time hibernating. And since they don't need to store as much fat reserves, they don't have to get as big as other black bears.
Though you wouldn't believe it if you saw one, black bears are the smallest among the bears in North America. But careful when you see one, they are gigantic. The average black bear reaches about 150 kilos, but the especially large males can reach all the way to 250 kilos. The one that we just spotted right over there on that other riverbank was probably closer to 250 kilograms. The bears along this river are gorging themselves on as many salmon as they possibly can, trying to put on the pounds so that they'll have the energy to last through their long slumber through the winter. During this period, they don't eat at all and will lose up to 40% of their body weight. Going into hibernation without enough fat reserves can be lethal. It's especially crucial for the female black bears to put on a lot of weight in preparation for their long hibernation, because it's during hibernation that they'll give birth to their cub. A black bear's metabolic rate needs to slow way down for it to get through its hibernation. Its heart rate, for example, goes from 50 beats per minute all the way down to 10.
The mom and her cub have had their fill, and just in time. Out of the bush, a massive male emerges. The riverbank is his.
There it is. Right there. There it is. A big black bear. Oh yeah, take a look at that.
He confidently struts down to the water and with almost no effort catches a massive salmon. He carries it up onto a log and devours it. Unfortunately, as untouched as this river looks, it's become fairly well known to tourists. Despite being king of the river, the presence of these tourists has the bears very stressed out, and even the largest males scare easily. Sadly, this means that for the bears, this bountiful river may not be one that they will return to in the future, making their lives that much harder. Fortunately, black bears are the most successful bears in North America. They thrive in all sorts of habitats and are a very versatile species. Just please leave them alone and keep your distance for your safety and theirs. Remember, a fed bear is a dead bear. Now that we've seen grizzly bears, coastal black bears, spirit bears, and polar bears, we can finally rule on which bear is best. Wait, what is that? No one can match the power of the greatest predator south of the Arctic. They're the largest, strongest, and most aggressive hunters of the forest. Their only challenge comes from within. This is the grizzly bear. Today, we're traveling into the heart of darkness in search of one of the world's greatest predators, grizzly bears. To get here, we needed to drive to the northern tip of Vancouver Island and take a boat to the mainland and a smaller boat to get up the river where grizzlies are known to fish. The water's a little chilly. We made it safely to shore.
We have spent all day on a boat, coming deep into the river deltas in the west coast of British Columbia. And now, I find myself deep in grizzly bear country.
The day is dreadful, but there are encouraging signs. Unfortunately, the signs are very stinky.
We've been following a grizzly trail, and we've run into a couple piles of scat, so that's always a good sign. We know that he's been around here. Hopefully we find him.
No other predators thrive here. They'd just poke the grizzly bear. Even black bears stay away, as they can't compete. Grizzly bears here can be over 350 kilograms, more than double the largest black bear. In general, the more north you go, the bigger the grizzlies get. In Alaska, some males get to be over 600 kilograms and 3 meters tall when standing on their hind legs. In the southern part of their range, like Yellowstone National Park, they're only about as big as a sumo wrestler. This area also provides bears with an amazing feeding opportunity: salmon. This is the time of the year when millions of salmon are making their last trip upstream to sleep with the fishes. They'll make cute babies and then die.
There are salmon rushing by me, right behind me. Come on, grizzlies, come and get it.
After a long boat ride and hike through the rainforest, we finally found the spot. And there he was. We were instructed not to startle them, so we quietly settled down to watch him eat. Kinda like what my cat does to me every meal. To hunt, the bears wade out into the river and wait for the salmon to come to them. With so many salmon spawning, it's like an all-you-can-eat breakfast buffet. Further up the river, we came across a mother teaching her cubs to fish. In the late fall, bears go into gorge mode, or hyperphagia. Winter is coming, and food soon will become scarce. To survive the lean months, they go into hibernation, but before they take their 6-month nap, they need to get as fat as possible. This is why northern grizzlies are larger. They need more fat reserves to survive longer winters. After she's done building her winter body, she'll find a north-facing hill and dig a burrow. The process takes a few days, in which she can move up to a ton of dirt. She then pads the inside of the den with plant matter for insulation. The fish were not as abundant as they were earlier in the season, but they provided a nutritious dessert. This might be the last thing this bear eats this year. We'll let her be for now.
Whew, yeah. Looks like we made it back out, unscathed, unmauled. Our little Zodiac boat is right around the corner.
When fat is burned, it creates urea, which can be fatal in high doses. Bears deal with that problem by breaking down the urea and using the nitrogen to build protein. In some cases, the bear can gain muscle mass just by laying there. Is the bear diet a Hollywood fad yet? Speaking of diets, I was a little surprised to see so much plant matter in their poo. It turns out the majority of a grizzly bear's diet consists of berries, tubers, nuts, and other plant matter. Sometimes it's more energy efficient to eat plants than to chase prey. Of course, they're great predators and are known to be able to eat pretty much any animal in their range, including wolves and black bears. But they prefer to take it easy and mostly go for young or sick ungulates. And insects and small mammals are delicious appetizers. Carrion is another source of protein. They have one of the most sensitive noses in the animal kingdom, 20 times stronger than a bloodhound, and it helps them find prey over a kilometer away. Roadkill is an easy but dangerous snack, and they can also steal prey from other predators, such as wolves and cougars. These coastal areas support the majority of the grizzly population. About half of North America's 60,000 grizzlies live in Alaska, a quarter live in British Columbia, and the rest mostly in the Canadian Northern Territories and Alberta. Only about 1,500 bears live in the contiguous U.S. There used to be grizzlies all the way down to Mexico. California still has them in their flag, even though the last sighting there was in the 1930s. As Europeans started moving into these areas, they brought cattle with them, which proved to be an easy target for bears. Settlers quickly started hunting bears, and in just 30 years, they were reduced to their current range, mostly far away from human populations. Having seen the grizzlies of BC, we wanted to see the small population of grizzlies in the Rockies. After a 10-hour drive through forests, ice fields, and mountains, we made it to Alberta, home to a small but stable population of grizzly bears. Black bears also live here, so it's important to know how to tell them apart. Black bears can be brown, and grizzlies can be black, so you have to pay attention to their rump. In black bears, their rump is higher than their shoulders, while in grizzlies, it's the opposite. Grizzlies also have a muscular hump that black bears lack. And lastly, black bears have a straight snout, whereas grizzlies, it's more curved. On our way to Alberta, we briefly stopped at BC Wildlife Park, a conservation institution that rehabs wildlife and cares for animals that can't be released back into the wild. We got to see 2 massive grizzlies. They were beautiful and goofy, but at the same time, you could see from up close how strong and intimidating they could be. Everything about them is big.
These lovely grizzlies behind me are giving me a great display of just how agile their tongues are. They use these for all kinds of food manipulation. His sister over here, the lighter one, right there, she's like, "Come on, bro. Come on. You're embarrassing me."
The long tongues are particularly useful to extract insects from bark. You don't really think of grizzlies as moth eaters, but you know what they say. It's the food of the future.
Gotta say, I'm a little jealous of the grizzly lifestyle, packing on as many pounds as you can during the winter, and then emerging in the summer, just looking all svelte and perfect. It's amazing.
Our next destination was Jasper National Park, and having met them up close here just made us more determined to see them in the mountains. Just as the coastal grizzlies, these bears are preparing to hibernate and are at their heaviest. After a few days of searching, we got to see them. These are 2 of just 100 bears in the park. We were very lucky to have seen them. Females go into hibernation pregnant and give birth in the den. The cubs will feed on the milk exclusively until spring, so the mom needs to gain extra weight to produce enough food for her babies. Down by the river, there were 2 young bears. They seemed to be having a good time running around and playing. You know, normal young bear stuff. They start play fighting, but one of them goes a little too far. The other one retaliates. Even at a young age, their claws can be as long as your fingers. Over 50% of grizzlies don't survive their first year. The most common cause of death is other grizzly bears. this could be a Cain and Abel situation. Luckily, the mom shows up to break up the fight. The sight of her two young cubs killing each other would have been unbearable. And so, after several weeks of travel, we can finally scratch seeing a wild grizzly bear in Jasper off our bucket list. Today, these small creatures can be seen frolicking in the seas, digging complex tunnels, hanging out in the trees, or maybe even doing tricks in your living room. While they may seem small and unassuming, these ferocious animals come from an ancient line that reached its peak with giants more than 30 million years ago. This is the rise and fall of the giant mustelids. Today, we're going to talk about extinct giant mustelids. Mustelids include extant long hunters such as weasels, otters, and wolverines. In addition to stemming back tens of millions of years to the Oligocene, this ultra-successful family is also the largest in the order of carnivora. The diversity of habitats, ranges, diets, and features of mustelids today is the greatest of any carnivoran family. They have colonized almost every ecological niche, from marine ecosystems to tree canopies, throughout the world, except, of course, Antarctica. One thing that all extant mustelids have in common is their reputation for ferociousness. While today's mustelids are on the smaller side of the spectrum, the mustelids of the past tended towards gigantism. Around 31 million years ago, Mustelids began to diversify into 4 distinct groups. Mephididae, which includes skunks, Ailuridae, of which the sole living species is the red panda, Procyonidae, which includes raccoons and coatis, and the stars of our show, Mustelidae. This is a prime example of adaptive radiation, when a large number of species evolved from a common ancestor. Giant mustelids started showing up around 10 million years later. Enhydrictis galactoides, which lived in the Mediterranean during the Pleistocene, was one such giant mustelid. Even though it weighed only 10 to 15 kilograms, it's considered giant because it's over twice as heavy as its closest living relative, the 3-kilogram South American grizzon. Larger still was the African mustelid Ecorus ikacarin, a leopard-like hypercarnivore which stood 60 centimeters at the shoulder and was built very different than the mustelids we know today. Unlike today's mustelids that have short limbs and can only manage short bursts of speed, Ecorus had long legs, built more like a leopard's, and the upright stance of an active hunter. This predator was adapted to stalking and running, like modern dogs and hyenas. Miocene predators often had generalized hunting traits, putting their tactics somewhere between feline, pounce and grapple, and canine, chase and kill. The theory here is that a great abundance of prey didn't demand specialization in order for Miocene predators to snag a meal. One of the most complete and largest fossilized mustelids that we've ever found is that of an Eomelivora pivetoi. Located in Spain, this Eomelivora pivetoi specimen was found with the partial remains of at least 5 other individuals. Eomelivora was hypercarnivorous, meaning that more than 70% of its diet consisted of meat. It was even more hypercarnivorous and larger than wolverines, today's largest land-dwelling mustelid, though it was a distant honey badger relative. While most mustelid species diversification happened in Eurasia, mustelids did wander to almost every part of the world. In North America, there was the giant Megalictus ferox. This enormous mustelid was shaped like a ferret, but had the size of a jaguar. It weighed up to 100 kilograms and lived during the early Miocene, about 20 million years ago. Megalictus's skull was massive, and not even just by mustelid standards. It would have been about the length of a jaguar's skull and as wide as a black bear's. Its teeth were adapted to crush bones, like their distant relative, wolverines.
You hear that? That's moose bone breaking in his teeth. A wolverine's third upper molar is actually turned inwards like other mustelids, except theirs is way bigger. And this is designed to help them hold onto and crunch bones much more effectively, especially because most of their meals, like this one, are frozen. So he's grabbing onto that meat and twisting and turning to pull off pieces of frozen flesh. Now, wolverines don't mind at all if their meal is frozen. Frozen meat is what they're built for.
In the wild, if you got this close to a wolverine on a carcass, that would be a true miracle.
Oh, I bet.
You'd have to be, and it might only happen once in a lifetime.
Well, he's extremely patient, and I'm grateful for that.
While Megalictus once held the title of largest mustelid, in 2022, a larger species was discovered in Ethiopia. This enormous otter, which lived about 3 million years ago, was named Enhydriodon omoensis, and was the most giant of the giants. At over 200 kilograms, E. omoensis was the size of a lion. Based on analysis of its fossilized tooth enamel, E. omoensis likely ate a combination of terrestrial and aquatic prey, though it's not clear if it was a hunter or a scavenger. Either way, its teeth would have been perfect for chomping down on hard mollusks and even crunching bone. Along with many other large-sized carnivores, Enhydriodon omoensis likely went extinct in Africa during the Plio-Pleistocene transition, 3.2 to 2.6 million years ago. Some scientists believe that their extinction was triggered by the warmer climate of the Pliocene transitioning to the glacial ice ages of the Pleistocene. Another theory is that coexistence with our early human ancestors, Australopithecus and other hominid species, spelled an end for these larger and dangerous carnivores. While climate change may have killed Enhydriodon omoensis in Africa, it may also be responsible for the first burst of mustelid diversification. It all began with climate shifts that resulted in the emergence of grasslands about 33 million years ago. As Antarctica drifted to the South Pole, global cooling made carbon dioxide levels fall. This atmosphere was ideal for specific types of plants, and especially grasses. Forest ecosystems began to transition to the grasslands of the early Oligocene, and, as a result, about 60% of terrestrial mammals went extinct. Grazing ungulates took over and became larger, and so did the carnivores that preyed upon them. On the flip side, smaller rodent herbivores could hide in the grass and take refuge in tunnels underground. This smaller prey gave rise to smaller carnivores, including mustelid ancestor Paleogale, which was cat-like and weighed about a kilogram. From there, the floodgates were open to the evolution of all of the weird and wonderful mustelids we know today. Considering their rap as ferocious killers, one can only imagine how terrifying it must have been to come toe-to-toe with a puma-sized weasel.
Can you hear that?
How about now? Those are sea lions.